Premier League Live. Well, it's a meeting between two teams who are struggling at the wrong end of the table. Brighton have found points hard to come by. Despite being pleasing on the eye, they haven't taken 3 points here at the Amex since June. While Burnley are enduring their worst ever start to a Premier League season, sitting rock bottom and yet to register a win. On to the team news, and for Brighton, Graham Potter makes 3 changes. There's a recall in goal for Matt Ryan, as well as a first start for Danny Welbeck for the Seagulls, while hot-headed striker Neil Maupay partners Welbeck despite a bust-up with his manager last weekend. Sean Dyche makes 2 changes this evening, a huge return for captain Ben Mee at the heart of the Burnley defence, while Robbie Brady replaces the former Brighton midfielder Dale Stephens, who misses out on his return to the Amex. Well, Sean Derry is alongside me for tonight's match. Now, Sean, these 2 teams low on confidence, both on poor runs of form. What do you think could be the difference tonight?
Well, good evening, John. Yeah, it's quite an intriguing game for me. I look at the starting lineups of both teams, and the question is obviously how many goals can your centre forwards score? And it's interesting that they've both put in 2 centre forwards tonight, Welbeck and Maupay for Graham Potter's side, and Sean Dyche, of course, leads with Wood and Barnes. And I just think when you're low on confidence, I mean, I've been in this situation as a player before where you look for your talisman, you look for your top end parts of the pitch, and you need them to be on top form. And I look at both the centre forwards tonight, and I think it's a big night for them both.
Well, let's start with the host Brighton. They haven't won here at the Amex since beating Arsenal back in June. That's a run of 7 games here without a win. Now, Neil Maupay is recalled after his disciplinary action earlier this week. That meant he missed the defeat to Spurs last Sunday. How much of a boost is his return to the side, and also how much of a distraction do you think the behind-the-scenes drama will have affected his teammates?
Well, I think it's a big call to recall Neil Maupay, purely because, of course, we know the story behind Graham Potter and what he stands for, a togetherness within his football club and everybody in it, you know, as a collective and not really any individuals. And I just think that Neil Maupay has shown a little bit of selfishness in the way that he's probably look upon himself. You know, this is a Brighton team that is struggling. You know, I think they've got 2 draws out of the last 5, and you don't need anybody coming out of the group and saying it's all about them. And I just think this is a big call for Graham Potter tonight.
Now, you've been a professional footballer for a long time, Sean. You've had a quite illustrious career. Is it difficult when you are being told you're not dropped, that you are dropped and you're not part of the starting lineup?
Well, yeah, of course, we've all got egos, haven't we? You know, that's what makes professional football. You know, it's that, but how do you handle that ego? You know, it's a selfishness, but a selflessness within a team environment. And I think when it becomes just about you, which I think is the situation with Neil Maupay. Do you know what? Sometimes the lads can ostracise you, and as soon as you're in that position, that's a real difficult position to be in as a footballer.
And are you surprised to see a first start for Danny Welbeck tonight and Graham Potter going with 2 up top?
I am, because I'm not too sure how many minutes are going to be in Danny Welbeck's game. Of course, it's nice to have him on the pitch because he's a top player, and it's changed the dynamics of this front line for Graham Potter's team. But I think I'm looking more so for that little combination playing the final third with Lallana, Welbeck and Maupay. This is a very rigid 4-4-2 for Sean Dyche's team, as it always has been. Even the positive seasons of Sean Dyche has been a hard team to break down. But if you can get through that first line, you know, I'm sure Lallana, Welbeck and Maupay, they'll be rubbing their hands with glee.
And to Sean Dyche's Burnley, one of 3 teams still without a win, their worst ever start to a Premier League season, winless in their last 7 games. How surprised are you, I mean, albeit 6 games in, but to see Sean Dyche's side bottom of the table?
Well, I am, because, you know, you look at this Burnley team, and this is the team basically what it's been like for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and they know each other inside out, and the 4-4-2 doesn't change whether you win, lose or draw. But to see them with only 1 point on the tables, rooted at the bottom of the Premier League, I think it's quite worrying, not just for the Burnley fans but for Sean in particular. He would have expected a little bit more of out of his team this year.
A big boost, though, for Sean Dyche is the fact that he's got his skipper back tonight, Ben Mee, at the heart of the defence. How important is it to have a player of his calibre back for Burnley?
Oh, it's massive, of course. When you lose somebody of his calibre, of his, the way that he leads this back line for Burnley, if you're missing somebody like Ben Mee, let's not, he was touted around at the 35-40 million pound mark in pre-season. So to have him back alongside Tarkowski and that back four of Loughton and Taylor each side, that'll give Sean Dyche something to hang on to tonight.
And Sean Dyche has been in charge of Burnley for a long time. Celebrated his 8th anniversary last month, appointed back in 2012. But there's that behind the scenes distraction which seems to be happening now at every club. We've had behind the scenes with Neil Maupay for Brighton, but this is a different kind of drama for them with two potential buyers of the club. Putting your player's hat back on, Sean, when you are a player and you hear rumours of the club, changing hands when it comes to ownership, is that a distraction, or do you literally just focus on the task at hand of what happens on the field? Well,
it's not a distraction if you're a young player and you just want to get out there and play football, but when you get into the late 20s and the early 30s, as to what some of this group are looking like for Sean Dyche's team, you do start questioning what's happening upstairs, because then that whatever the impact's going to be, it's going to have an impact on you as a footballer as well. And I think this needs to go away really quickly for Sean Dyche. Whoever the new buyers are going to be, get them ingrained in the football club, and give Sean Dyche some money.
Well, thank you, Sean. We're almost 20 minutes away now from kick-off here at the Amex between Brighton and Burnley, and you're listening to Premier League Live.
Talk Sport. Impress lost tribespeople of the Andes by demonstrating the new updated TalkSport app. Listen live, listen again, and listen good, Buster. Download the app at talksport.com now. The Sports Bar, weeknights from 10 on TalkSport.
Hello, I'm Andy Goldstein, and of course you can hear me on the Sports Bar with Jason Cundy. We'll be taking all your calls, texts, tweets and emails on all the big talking points from the weekend's football. And remember, we bring you the very first look at the next day's back page headlines every single night.
The Sports Bar, weeknights from 10 on TalkSport.
TalkSport.
Catch up and listen up without having to cough up. It's free. Go to talksport.com and download the app today. Or don't. Your choice entirely.
Hello, Jim White here. Now, if you're wondering about all the background hullabaloo, I'm helping out as lifeguard at the brand new TalkSport swimming pool. Golf! No running there, boy! But never mind that. Join me tomorrow morning from 10, when I'll be up to my neck in the warm, chlorinated waters of the day's biggest sports stories. Come plunge with me, Jim White, straight in at the deep end of the action.
Weekday mornings from 10 on TalkSport.
Driving home with Darren Goff and Durham, a sporting legend and an angry sports journalist who'll pick a fight with anyone.
Just really winds me up. Absolutely unbelievable.
To say I'm angry is an understatement.
Adrian Durham, what an absolute clown.
Dynamic, double-strength drive time radio.
Shall I stay?
I don't like listening to him. I'll turn off.
Do you want me to stay?
Adrian Durham and Darren Goff.
He's an idiot.
Right, hands up, who wants me to stay?
Drive time radio.
I don't have to.
Weekdays from 4, only on TalkSport.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs on Sport. TalkSport. It's the double O duo on the radio show that's like a collapsible bridge over a shark-infested pool of big names, sporting headlines, and topical debate. Join Paul Alligator Hopscotch Hawksbee and Andy Oddjob Jacobs, flying the plane of sporting entertainment out of the horse's bum of conventional radio.
Have we got Pussy Galore on the show, Andy?
No, Paul, but we've got Todd Macklin's American Sports Roundup. Will that do?
Not really, Andy, no.
Hawksbee and Jacobs, shaken but not stirred. Weekday afternoons from 1 on TalkSport.
TalkSport. Confuse bookmakers, impress football agents, and entertain the kids with the improved TalkSport app. Totally fun, totally free, totally football. Download it now from talksport.com. Hey, kids, take me mobile and go over there and play or something. Don't press the button that says Tinder. TalkSport.
Well, you're listening to TalkSport's coverage of Brighton Hove Albion against Burnley from the Amex Stadium. I'm your host, John Howick. Alongside me is the former Leeds, QPR and Crystal Palace midfielder Sean Derry, and this is Premier League Live. Well, we're getting ready for the start of match week 8 between Brighton and Burnley, but here's a recap of all the action from match week 7.
Here is Ward-Prowse, right-footed again, and he's done it again! The same corner and the same outcome. Here is Danny Ings, shoots right-footed, and he finds the corner. That is a blockbuster from Danny Ings. The last chance surely for Villa. Grealish's shot, he scores. Aston Villa 3, Southampton 4.
The Premier League, no team gives up, and especially not such a strong side. And compared also to them, they always believed in what they are doing, and we knew, or I knew, that it can get tight in the end, and it was definitely the tough game I expected.
Abrahams lays it up, and there's the shot into the net, and it's Hakim Ziyech who's got his first Premier League goal.
To corner to Walker, who's in space against his old club, and Kyle Walker on his 100th Manchester City Premier League appearance guns the ball into the net. Walker scores against his old team.
It's Diogo Jota! He's knocked it out this time. What a signing he's been. The Portuguese pops up in the perfect place, and Liverpool have turned this game around. They lead by 2-1.
Maddison has slipped in Jenkins under here, under to win it. He's found Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy has scored.
20 minutes to go to give Arsenal the lead. Right-footed, scores! Aubameyang sends the hair the wrong way. His goal drought is over.
Well, it's a huge win for us, and obviously we know our history here in the last 14 years that we haven't been able to win, and I just try to create a mindset and an energy around the team that they could really believe that if we were who we've been today, that we can beat any opponent. And I'm really happy with the result, but I'm extremely proud about the game that they played, the courage that they showed.
Now, the Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta there speaking after their 1-0 victory against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Sean Derry is alongside me in the commentary box this evening, and Sean, that was a fairly impressive result for the Gunners. Do you see Arsenal as top 4 genuine top 4 candidates under Mikel Arteta?
Wow, what a question. I mean, anything can happen this season. We obviously know that, you know, the dynamics of this Premier League season's obviously changed over for obvious reasons with this lockdown, and I just think the way that Arteta leads his team, 4 clear points for me where he's just mentioned in his own analysis: his mindset, energy, courage, but I'm going to add organisation to this. I think the way that he's organised his team in terms of the high press and the energy that they play with that high press, I think they could just about break into that top 4 this season.
Well, one side that's still been able to keep up with all the pace despite the chaos around them is, of course, the Premier League champions Liverpool, who defeated West Ham by 2-1 on Saturday. And their boss Jurgen Klopp has been praising the impact of Diogo Jota.
We would not be in the Champions League even if Bobby Firmino would not be with us. And immediately I have to explain why he is not in the team. He will be in the team, and is our for a lot of people in the world, if we would ask him what makes Liverpool someday special, I would say the way Bobby Firmino is playing, because he's on a good day not to defend. For us, it's important that we have more than 11, and tonight Diogo used his shape in an incredible way and played a super game, but that says nothing about Bobby and has absolutely nothing to do with me causing headaches. I'm more than happy that the boys play like that. That the boys played like they played tonight.
Well, a hat-trick for Diogo Jota in the Champions League against Atalanta in midweek, and it's creating quite the headache. I mean, I personally think so, Sean, isn't it, for Jurgen Klopp? Because Roberto Firmino has been such an integral cog of that Liverpool team. You know, he's the one that really allows Salah and Mane to find the spaces in behind the defenders. But with Diogo Jota, they're finding not only someone who can also help the creative side of Liverpool's game, but he's scoring an awful lot of goals since his arrival.
Oh, what a problem. What a fantastic problem he's got there. It's brilliant. Of course, you know, Mane, Salah and Bobby Firmino have been just the absolute top 3 in the Premier League for me in the last 2 years. But to go and have a Diego Jota right behind Bobby Firmino, or potentially taking his role over the next 3 or 4 games, I don't think that's a problem at all for the manager. I really don't. And coupled with that, you know, I bring into the same equation a Shaqiri who comes on and he offers a different type of balance to that forward line as well. And the creativity that they've got in the final third must be amazing for the manager.
And there is that huge match, of course, on Sunday between Manchester City and Liverpool. And if you're Jurgen Klopp, do you keep doing what you're doing with Jota having such an impact on the team, or do you go back to Roberto Firmino, the tried and tested formula that ultimately won you the league last season?
Oh, another great question. I mean, of course, how can you drop somebody who scored an hat-trick?
Exactly.
That would be, from a player's perspective. But then I suppose you look at the bigger picture and you say, right, this Mane, Salah and Bobby Firmino, that actually works as well. And we've known the impact that Jota's been able to present on a match day as well. So I think he'll go for Firmino. I really do. I think he's going to go back to Bobby Firmino.
That's going to be a very interesting game on Sunday, which of course we will bring you here on Premier League Live between Manchester City and Liverpool. But our attentions turns to the match ahead of us tonight here at the Amex between Brighton and Burnley. I think it's too early to say it's a must-win for both sides, but both teams could really do with the 3 points tonight. Brighton have not won here at home yet this season, haven't won at the Amex since back in June, whereas Burnley haven't won at all this season and sit rock bottom at the foot of the Premier League table. So let's build up to tonight's game and have a chance to hear from both managers. We'll hear from Sean Dyche in just a moment, but first let's start with the Seagulls boss, Graham Potter.
Again, the fine margins that I speak about, they could have gone the other way and they'd be sitting with a completely different picture, if you like. So I think that's the nature of the Premier League. There's always teams that are on the wrong end of those margins. Sean's experienced enough to know that, and he's experienced enough to work through that, and has the quality to do that. So I'm sure that's what they'll be doing, as that's what we're trying to do. And the more you work and the harder you work and the more you stick together, do the right things, the greater the chance things can turn to your favour.
Not in all games. We certainly weren't against Chelsea, weren't good enough, and they were. Other games I think we have, but that is part and parcel of the Premier League. When you're us, we know that. We've got to work more, not harder by any means, but with more detail in both boxes and both ends of the pitch to get on the right side of their margins. There's no lack of effort, no lack of will. What we've got to find are the real quality moments, both in defence and attack, to make sure we do get the margins right. And so, yeah, there's some truth in that, but equally, don't want to start making excuses. A couple of games we haven't been strong enough to get the result that we need.
Part of the process is, of course, explaining and educating and helping and supporting. It's not about whether he's a better character or not. It's just part of the process of being a human being. When I was younger, I did some things that I look back on now and maybe think with hindsight and with a bit of age and perspective, you do things differently. But that's part of life. I think that's part of growing up as a person. So there's no problem with that at all. We just have to help each other, support each other, and when we make mistakes, we have to deal with them and act responsibly and then move forward.
Every summer is a restart, as I call it. Nothing's taken for granted, and this so far has proved that. Not in a good way, by the way, I must say. But we finished 10th last year. There's no guarantees. I certainly didn't come into this season thinking there was any guarantees. The last season doesn't know you the next one, etc., etc. So, the slate's cleared and you get on with it.
Graham Potter, and then lastly there, Sean Dyche previewing tonight's game. Sean Derry is alongside me this evening for tonight's game at the Amex. I'll start with the hosts, Sean and Brighton, with that team news going with Danny Welbeck and Neil Maupay up front, and a recall for the French striker after that incident with Potter that meant he was left out against Tottenham on Sunday. Now, to paint you the picture, the excuse that Potter gave at the weekend was Neil Maupay had been left out for what he said was tactical reasons, wasn't even on the bench, and then it sort of materialised that there was an issue during the week, I think in the build-up in training, that to do with the Frenchman's ego, and that must cast some sort of shadow over the players. But it's a big statement, isn't it, tonight from the manager to reinstate him, put him back in the starting lineup?
Do you know what? I think it's good management. I think there'd be a lot of different types of management that would have probably kept him out for a longer period of time. but he doesn't want to cut his nose off to spite his face, Graham Potter. He knows he's in a difficult position at this moment in time. 2 draws out the last 5 games. He's looking for goals. He's looking for a connection with Welbeck and potentially one other at the top as well. Perhaps O'Connelly's going to be better coming off the bench for him. And I just think it's a brave decision. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's probably got in some senior players out the group and explained the decision that he's made. I think that's important through management.
And how fired up will Neil Maupay be? Because surely he comes into the team now with a point to prove, because he's got to live up to that big French ego now, hasn't he?
Well, he has to, but he owes his manager, doesn't he? He owes the manager. The manager has actually put a lot of trust in him as a player, giving him the opportunity to come into the Premier League. And obviously now, this young player, he looks to me like he's an egotistical player, an egotistical person. I remember him back at Brentford. Some of his celebrations were probably over the mark at times, and we've seen it at times this season. I think against the Manchester Uniteds earlier on as well, and I think some of the senior players need to step in here.
But do you need that sometimes, Sean? Do you need, especially as a strong? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of the best players. I mean, you look at Ronaldo. I'm not saying Neil Maupay is Ronaldo at all, but you need that chip on your shoulder. You need that little bit of charisma. Do you sometimes need to have that kind of character? To be a top quality striker, to make it to the next level, do you need to have that chip on your shoulder?
I think you do, but I do think there's a fine line between arrogance and super confidence, and I think sometimes he can just go over that line, Maupay. I think he can just go into that little line of antagonising not just only his opponents but internally his own players as well.
Well, he replaces Leandro Trossard in the starting lineup for Brighton tonight. The 2 other changes, Matt Ryan returning in goal, and a first start for Danny Welbeck up front for the Seagulls. He will partner Neil Maupay this evening. Turning our attentions now to Burnley, bottom of the table, yet to win a game so far this season. Just 1 point taken so far by Sean Dyche. We said earlier the big news that Ben Mee is back in the starting lineup tonight. Robbie Brady comes in. He's the second change, with Dale Stephens missing out against his old side. We turn our attentions to Sean Dyche, Sean Derry, and he spent a lot of money this summer, 160 million on new players for Burnley, recouping around 93 million pounds. There is the talk of the takeover, the 2 sort of potential buyers. I mean, Burnley shouldn't be bottom of the table, should they?
Well, if you know, I mean, we're looking at the bottom of the table as we sit here now, and the Sheffield Uniteds, the West Broms, and the Fulhams of this world are always going to struggle in the Premier League. But I actually think that Burnley, that they're in that bracket as well. I mean, I look at them just in their pre-match warm-up, exactly the same. Nothing's going to change for Sean Dyche. They're going to have this rigid back 4 that stays in shape. They want to put the ball in the box at every opportunity for the likes of Wood and Barnes, and the likes of McNeil on one side and not so much Browning on the other side have to be the creators. But I don't think they've got that much creativity in the team, and that's why they're bottom of the league.
Well, they've gone for Barnes and Wood up front for Burnley tonight. 2 former Brighton strikers against their old club this evening. So there is the case for the momentum there, and the sort of motivation to try and score against your old team. With Burnley and the way they've been this season, I mean, you look ahead to their other fixtures to come, Sean, and home to Crystal Palace. This is all after the international break. Away to Manchester City, home to Everton, then Arsenal away. I'm not saying tonight's a must-win, but they have to take something from this game, don't they?
I think you're right. I mean, we don't want to call it must-wins because it's not a must-win at this time of the season, but I think it's a big night for them. You look at what's round the corner with a Crystal Palace, City, Everton and Arsenal. I mean, if you get 1 or 2 points out of them 3 games after Crystal Palace, you're quite happy as a Burnley who are fighting for their lives at the bottom of the table. So tonight's game, it carries so much importance for Sean Dyche.
Well, we'll be back for the start of tonight's match in just a few moments' time. In fact, the 2 teams are getting lined up in the tunnel. Brighton all ready and raring to go here tonight against Burnley. It's 2 British bosses. It's Graham Potter versus Sean Dyche, and this is Premier League Live.
Evenings with James Whale on Talk Radio.
Keep connected with round-the-clock news, essential information and expert insight.
I think we've got to be very careful about the way this has all been going on.
Cutting through the confusion with everything you need to stay safe, informed and entertained.
Everyone's going on about, we should be tracking and testing, and I just don't know how that is going to happen.
Evenings with James Whale. Weeknights from 7 on Talk Radio.
In a world of 24/7 global sportscasting and instant news infotainment, one man bestrides the airwaves like a snow-capped Caledonian colossus.
Hello, I'm Jim White.
Jim White, anchorman.
Mid-morning news team, assemble.
Jim White and Natalie Sawyer, the #1 rated news source for breaking sports stories, big-name guests, and liquid showbiz charisma.
Great Odin's Raven. That's quite a transfer.
There's nothing burgundy about Jim White. Tomorrow morning from 10 on TalkSport.
In the spring of the year 2020 AD, a deadly enemy rages like a torrent of fire between the ends of empire.
My name is Maximus Talksportus Pandemicus, gladiator of the sports radio. Gird up your loins and battle the invasion of COVID-19, because what you do today will echo in eternity.
TalkSport Legion, assume tortoise formation against COVID-19.
Show this virus no mercy by keeping a distance of at least 2 meters at all times. That's 6.75 Roman feet centurions. Together, Legion, TalkSportus can defeat it.
TalkSportus Maximus.
On my signal, unleash hand sanitizer.
Keep it on, stay informed, and give coronavirus the red cardus.
Are you not hand sanitized?
20 years of TalkSport.
Gentlemen, good evening.
There's no such thing as an overnight success.
Accrington Stanley 4, titanium plasmatronic death droids from the future, 0.
Excess.
I wasn't getting up, I was just getting in.
Excitement.
Excuse me,
and extremely strong opinions.
I spend my life covering the big game at the big level.
On DAB, medium wave, and on your smart speaker. 20 years of TalkSport.
For all the latest news, opinions and advice, listen to Talk Radio throughout the day and stay informed as events unfold.
We're now in a position to start implementing the next part of our plan.
Find out what's happening now and what may happen next, all day, every day.
If the government gets to grips with the plan, then surely we will be able to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Listen now on DAB Digital Radio, online, via the Talk Radio app, or ask your smart speaker to play Talk Radio.
Well, you're listening to TalkSport's coverage of Brighton and Hove Albion against Burnley from the Amex Stadium. I'm your host, John Howick, and alongside me is the former Leeds QPR and Crystal Palace midfielder Sean Derry. This is Premier League Live. The two teams out on the field tonight, Brighton versus Burnley. Brighton in all blue this evening. Burnley in yellow with claret shorts, just getting ready to meet in the middle. Brighton with 3 changes tonight. Matt Ryan returning to the starting lineup, as does Neil Maupay. There's also a first Premier League start at Brighton for striker Danny Welbeck. The two captains meeting in the middle now, Adam Webster and Ben Mee. As for Burnley tonight, Ben Mee is one of 2 big changes for Sean Dyche. He's able to recall his captain to the heart of the defence. Big chance for him this evening to show what he's still got left in the tank. And Robbie Brady also coming in to replace Dale Stevens. Well, with Remembrance Sunday just 2 days away, and this being Brighton's last home game before we pay our respects, both the managers laying wreaths on the edge of their technical areas ahead of Remembrance Sunday and all the services that will be taking place across the country at the weekend to remember the lives lost in conflict during the 2 world wars, and the players gathered round the centre circle to show their marks of respect. Well, the notes there of the last post echoing around the empty Amex Stadium this evening on a chilly night on the south coast. Brighton versus Burnley. I'm your host, John Howick, and alongside me is the former Crystal Palace midfielder, Sean Derry. And this will be an interesting encounter tonight, Sean, between two sides low on confidence, down near the wrong end of the table. And how important will it be for both teams to try and take something ahead of the international break?
Oh, vitally important. But I think to start with in the game, the first 15 minutes for both teams are so important in tonight's game. What you don't want to be is down within 15 minutes of this game.
Well, the players taking the knee to show that they are united against racism. And we are about to get underway thanks to the whistle of referee Mike Dean. And it's Brighton kicking us off and sending a long ball forward into the Burnley half, which is snuffed out early by Brownhill, chested down though by Yves Bissouma. And Brighton with the early possession, lining up what could be 4 at the back, it could potentially be 3 at the back. But it's Ryan in goal, defence from right to left of Lamptey, Webster, Veltman and Byrne. Ben White sits in the hole, but there's a chance he could slot into a back 3. There's a slip here and an early chance for Welbeck. Right side of the penalty area, back to Lamptey and fired over the bar from close range. Well, what a let off for Burnley and for Ben Mee. Back in the starting lineup, that long ball over the top of the Burnley defence. Welbeck sneaking in behind. Ben Mee slipped, couldn't make the clearance. Welbeck got to the ball first, cut it back to Lamptey, who blazed over the bar.
Well, we spoke about this opening period of the game, John, and I mean, what a terrible decision it was. I was looking at the run from Welbeck and I'm thinking, it's a great run, but Ben Mee should have just dealt with it. He lost his footing, and this is where Lamptey's popped up at certain moments of this Premier League season, right involved in the 6-yard box, and he should have hit the target. He should have scored there.
Well, 1 minute in, Brighton 0, Burnley 0. Early chance though for the hosts, and Tariq Lamptey, who could be a right wing back tonight, along with potentially Dan Burn on the left. Pascal Gross and Yves Bissouma make up the rest of the Albion midfield, with Adam Lallana in the hole, and it's Neil Mopé and Danny Welbeck up front for the Seagulls. Chance for Burnley to move forward now with Westwood. That's with Brownhill in the middle of the midfield. Back to Ben Mee. The Burnley skipper recalled tonight after a long time out due to injury, having that early scare with the slip that allowed Welbeck to cut that ball back before Lamptey missed the chance to give Brighton the early lead. Burnley playing 4-4-2 tonight with Pope in goal, defence from right to left of Loughton, Tarkowski, Mee and Taylor, then McNeil, Westwood, Brownhill and Brady up front. 2 former strikers for Brighton in Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes. And the away side now trying to settle down as they just play the ball around, largely unchallenged inside their own half. The referee tonight, coincidentally, is Mike Dean. Graham Scott has not been given a game after his performance against Tottenham at the weekend, as this ball is looped into the Brighton box, and an easy take for Matty Ryan. 1 of 3 Brighton changes tonight, and the man on VAR is Michael Oliver. Well, Brighton yet to win at home so far this season, dating back to a victory against Arsenal in the summer. That was after the resumption of the season during lockdown. Able to win that game, the Albion. Whereas Burnley yet to win so far this season, bottom of the Premier League table on just a single point under Sean Dyche. 8 seasons in charge at Burnley, spending £160 million during that time, recouping around 93 million, averaging 20 million a summer. They do find themselves bottom the table for the new campaign. A long ball over the top, a wasteful pass back to Nick Pope, and perhaps now, Sean, we're starting to see that nervy start from these two teams. Lots of passes going astray, no real intent going forward at the moment.
No, and I think both teams are going to give up the final third in terms of their pressing zones. I look at the 4-4-2 of Burnley, and they're not really engaging the back 3 for Brighton, and they'll have a lot of ball.
A deep cross in, which hits the crossbar and beats Matt Ryan. Well, that was misjudged by the Australian, didn't quite know where that was going. I think that was Dwight McNeil over on the far side. Right-footed, and he spotted, I think, Matt Ryan off his line. I think I'm giving him a disservice there. In fact, it was Loughton with the cross, right-footed. I think he's looked up and he's seen Ryan off his line. He's tried to lob him. It's hit the underside of the bar. And that's a massive chance for Burnley. Big let-off for Matt Ryan. Remains 0-0.
Well, everything we've seen from this Burnley team in the final third, they look to get the ball in the box at every opportunity. They have to, with Wood and Barnes in the box all the time. And I think it was a miscued cross, I really do. And I'm sure, you know, under any other circumstances, Matt Ryan would have just collected that. But it kind of came off the outside of his foot. And we've seen 2 chances in this game already. And it's going to be mistakes. These 2 teams, unfortunately, at this moment in time, are littered with mistakes.
A free kick given away by Neil Maupay for a high boot on a diving clearance off the head of Ben Mee. And that wouldn't have done, that Loughton chance wouldn't have done much for Brighton's nerves and Matt Ryan's nerves. Recalled to the starting lineup. I don't think he would have wanted that in the opening few minutes, to be tested from that far out and almost being caught flat-footed.
Absolutely. I mean, we do see these 2 fullbacks for Burnley get on, you know, they get into wide areas and they're so consistent by getting the balls into the box. I mean, the warm-up was evidence of that. Every time these 2 fullbacks got it in the warm-up, they was putting the ball in the box for Barnes and Wood. So I think we're going to see a lot of entries into the final third from both teams.
Of course, no Lewis Dunk in the Brighton defence to head those crosses away. He's serving the final of a 3-match ban after being sent off against Crystal Palace a few weeks ago. Brighton now trying to settle things down on their halfway line with Adam Webster bringing the ball forward. The captain tonight in Lewis Dunk's absence. 6 minutes gone. Brighton 0, Burnley 0. No win in their last 5 games. Brighton a 2-1 defeat against Tottenham on Sunday. And some very dubious VAR decisions as well, potentially going against the Seagulls. They've given away possession in the midfield. That was a stray pass attempted for Lallana. Now coming forward here is Ashley Barnes, who's gone down, I thought, inside the penalty area, but I think Mike Dean has said that maybe he handled the ball as he fell to the ground. It was a through ball from McNeil, and as Veltman tripped in, Barnes has just put his arm right the way around the ball, trying his best to win that free kick, but Brighton will keep with possession. Barnes on 98 career goals, scored 53 in 170 appearances during his spell on the south coast for the Seagulls. Here's Adam Lallana, middle of the midfield, bringing the ball out for Brighton. Looking up, and Neil Maupay will try and switch this to the right flank, looking for Tariq Lamptey. That won't find him. It's cleared away off the head of Taylor. And Brighton being sloppy and giving away possession here. It was a stray pass by Veltman. And Burnley picking up the ball on the halfway line. Taylor can just work it back here and get settled back with his defensive line. Tarkowski alongside Ben Mee once again this evening. And having Ben Mee back will make Burnley a lot more difficult to break down for Brighton. They've been so reliable for Burnley in the past, but this has been a team that's been shipping goals quite freely so far this season. 12 conceded, averaging 2 a game. And there's a free kick as Ashley Barnes gets a push in the back just inside the centre circle.
Yeah, and he's just having a little word with Mike Dean there, asking why he was adjudged to have given the foul away himself. It was a lovely little ball a couple of minutes ago by Dwight McNeil. What this Brighton team do is they keep the ball in defensive areas really well, but they have got a tendency to overplay from the back, and the narrowness of this Burnley team allows them to go and pounce on stray passes, and that's exactly what the game plan looks to be in these first 8 minutes.
Brighton conceded 14 goals so far this season. 4 have been from set pieces, and here's one to be sent into the box. It's Westwood with the delivery. It's cleared away out to the Brighton penalty area off the head there of Byrne, and then cleared upfield by Webster. And Brighton could try and hit Burnley on the counter here. It's Lallana, and he sends a through ball down the left flank for Tariq Lamptey. He doesn't often pop up on the left wing, but here he is now. I'm sure he'll try and cut in onto his right. In fact, he drives with his left, gets the cross in. Danny Welbeck, though, is deemed to have fouled his man as he went up for that header with Tarkowski, and that will be a free kick for Burnley. Don't often see Lamptey break away on that left flank, but the pass wasn't really into his path. It's a fairly decent delivery in the end, but it was a bit too aggressive there from Welbeck, just jumping into Charlie Taylor, in fact, and it remains 0-0.
Yeah, it was a good little breakaway by Brighton there. You're right, you don't see the right-sided wing back at left wing, do you, many times in a game. But we did with Brighton. They've got a fluidity about them, this Brighton team. It's just the style that they play with, the back three and the rotating 2 or 3 midfielders in possession. Can look really good when they're on top of the game, but it has got a flaw, this system.
Well, Brighton, as we thought might have started with 4 at the back, they have gone to 3 with Ben White slotting in alongside Veltman and Webster. That means Lamptey on the right and Byrne on the left can try and push on. Remember, you can tweet into @TalkSport Live. Let me know where you're listening from this evening and who you're supporting tonight. Sean Dyche looks on from the technical area. Celebrated his 8th anniversary as Burnley boss on the 30th of October. Appointed back in 2012, finished 10th last season, which was their highest Premier League finish and their joint highest Premier League points total with 54. Not been the best of starts to this season. Did, of course, guide Burnley to a spot in the Europa League, so it's not all been doom and gloom. Certainly the prolonged season in the end to last season has probably made things a little bit worse. Now here's Mopé getting to the edge of the penalty area, plays it into Lallana, who's moved inside the box, cuts it back here to Byrne in support, hasn't really got any options, so has to turn back and face his own goal 20 yards out, and Brighton forced back towards the halfway line. Short pass here though into Neil Mopé, who offered himself up deep, tries to play a 1-2 with Lallana, gets the ball back, Mopé shifts onto his left boot, now onto his right, has it taken off his toes, and that will be cleared away by Matt Loughton. Brighton though have won it back. Pascal Gross with a try from 20 yards out, claiming that got a deflection. I don't think the officials will agree. It'll just be a goal kick. Remains 0-0.
I think we've just seen an example of this Brighton team in the final third. You know, there was opportunities perhaps 2 or 3 times there, John, where they could have just opened themselves up. Neil Maupay's got himself inside the 18-yard box. Have a strike on goal. You know, I think sometimes they want to score the perfect goal in the final third. And this is a team, this Burnley team, who are low on confidence. That's exactly why they're at the bottom of the league. You don't want to be turning down opportunities to have a strike on goal in the first 10, 12 minutes of the game.
But is that a mentality issue, Sean, with Brighton perhaps? They don't feel confident in you know, going for the shot and taking that risk. They've almost got to, you know, as you say, make the perfect goal.
Yeah, and I just think, you know, the build-up, you know, the training days leading into this game, you'd be expecting Graham Potter to definitely put on certain systems and shapes and formulas to try and get outcomes in training, just to get them in the mood for this evening's game.
Ashley Barnes has received the ball, but coming back from an offside position on the edge of the Brighton box. The flag goes up from our assistant referee Dan Rabathan over on the far side. Barnes, as I was saying, with 53 goals for Brighton, 170 appearances for the Seagulls, finds himself on 92 career goals tonight. I'm sure he'd love to score against his old club this evening, and he will really put those Brighton defenders through the ringer tonight. Very physical presence from Barnes and from Chris Wood alongside him as Brighton play out from the back. Here's Joel Veltman, signed from Ajax this summer. Thought he'd be part of cover for Brighton, but due to the suspension to Lewis Dunk, he's starting his 3rd game in a row in the Premier League. He's Basuma coming through the middle of the midfield, scored against Burnley in the back end of last season in the 2-1 win at Turf Moor as Neil Mopé goes down, looking at the referee the whole way. It was a fairly poor effort at a dive there from Mopé, and it's with McNeil over on the far side for Burnley, trying to find their rhythm in going forward. Haven't scored in their last 3 games, the Clarets. As Sean Derry's been saying, they will be low on confidence. Tarkowski, not put under any real pressure, can square it to the returning Ben Mee, unbeaten in 8 career appearances versus Brighton, will look to continue that run tonight. 13 minutes gone at the Amex, and it's 0-0 between 2 teams struggling at the wrong end of the table.
Well, it is, but it's been a game that started with a bit of pace about it. You know, it's not a slow, lethargic opening 13 or 14 minutes. We've seen a couple of mistakes, which I think that's what's going to happen with these 2 teams tonight. But there seems to be a common ground between both of them, that they want to try and get this early goal in the game.
Ball switched from the middle of the midfield over to the right flank to the feet of Matt Loughton, who takes it down well with a good first touch. Couldn't find the pass past Dan Burn, who at 6 foot 6 inches, there's quite a lot of him to get past at left back. Not often see someone of that physique flying forward at wing back, but that's the task he will have this evening, unless they give Tariq Lamptey sort of free rein down that right flank. Long ball forward that crosses the halfway line by Nick Pope. It's touched down by Ashley Barnes, who, after he wrangled himself free and that misplaced pass, will look at referee Mike Dean, who will give the free kick. And this is what Burnley do. They are a very direct side. They like to launch the long ball up to their strikers and see what they can get out of it. 19.4% of their passes have been long balls in the Premier League, which is a record. It's the highest statistic for direct passing, and that's what they're going to try and utilise tonight, isn't it? The height and the physicality of Barnes and Wood up front.
Absolutely. I mean, they make no apologies for it, do they? You know, they've got some big, strong, big physical players. I mean, I'm looking at Barnes now getting involved with a little situation with Dan Burn. They ruffle the defenders up and they do it really, really well.
Well, they're shoulder to shoulder, and there's quite a lot of height between both of them as they get ready for this Westwood free kick. It's fizzed in, it will flick off the head of Tarkowski. Struggling to keep it in is McNeil, but he's done so. He's cut it back beautifully, in fact, to Brownhill on the edge of the box. Couldn't get his first shot away. The loose ball will ricochet into the path here of Taylor, delivers the cross, and there's a header on goal from Chris Wood at the far post. It was a nice delivery in the end. It was hung up well here by Taylor. Wood just sneaking in between two Brighton defenders, but no real pace on the header to trouble Matt Ryan. Ball over the top here, which Lamptey will try and give chase. Can't keep it in play. It goes out for a throw-in on this near side. Brighton 0, Burnley 0.
Just looking back at that set play, and what they do really well, Burnley, is they obviously put the ball in the box and they try and get around the second ball. But what they do as well is they get players outside the box, and that second delivery into the box is so important for them as well. It's that second phase delivery where sometimes defenders can turn off, and Wood, and obviously you've got Barnes at the top, and some of the centre halves will stay in there ready for that second phase. And I think that's what Sean Dyche will be saying tonight for them. That is a ploy. That's something how they can get this first goal.
I'm sure Graham Potter would feel a lot more confident going up against Burnley tonight if he had the likes of Lewis Dunk at the heart of that Brighton defence. He's so good in the air. They have got the height of Dan Burn and Adam Webster and Joel Veltman as well, but it's not the same physical presence as having the Seagull skipper Lewis Dunk, who misses out tonight, serving the final of a 3-game ban. He'll be back after the international break. And so they travel to Aston Villa. Let's roll back here to Matt Ryan under a bit of pressure from Ashley Barnes. They'll play out from the back here, Brighton. This style of play that's been enforced by Graham Potter since he took over from Chris Hughton. They gave up the safe pair of hands for a manager that likes to play attractive football. It's been pleasing on the eye, but it's not been taking the points, which is why Brighton find themselves just 2 points clear of the bottom 3 going into tonight's game. Here's Burnley winning back possession in the midfield. Pass here from Westwood, which is slightly out of reach of Robbie Brady. That allows Dan Burn to sneak in behind him and win back possession. Veltman steadies himself as he starts to bring the ball away here for Brighton. 0-0 after 17.5 minutes here at the Amex Stadium. Basuma works it out to the right flank. Veltman with a pass, finding Pascal Gross, who's dropping into those little pockets just beyond the Burnley midfield. Veltman with the ball over the top, looking for the run of Mope, headed away by Ben Mee. Into touch now to play for a throw-in. Brighton still can't quite penetrate this Burnley defence.
No, they can't, and you mentioned the word pockets there, and it's everything that Adam Lallana looks for, doesn't he? You know, he's such a clever player. We saw it with Liverpool when he was outstanding for them, when he got a game time for them. So he'll be looking at this rigid 4-4-2.
It's Dan Burn with a try on the half volley. That goes well wide. Pascal Gross got the ball on the right flank, switched it over to the left. Burn took it down well, to his credit. Nice chest, and on the second bounce as the ball got down to his feet, just sort of smashed that shot wide as it started to swirl clear of the far post of Nick Pope there. Maybe that's a sign of frustration, Sean.
Well, he caught it well. Sadly it was the wrong side of the post, and it didn't cause any problems for Pope, but this is what this Brighton team do. They get their wing backs high, advanced wing. They turn into wingers. But you need a little bit more quality at the end of it, unfortunately. There, Dan Burns kind of just swang, and I think he should have took an extra pass, I think.
Yeah, Brighton trying to use that sort of press and those extra wingers, as Sean Derry mentioned, just trying to really force Burnley back and create a little bit of extra space and certainly a bit more width, but they are at risk of being hit on the counter. And here is a long ball up towards Chris Wood. That's how Burnley gained their ground, but the second ball is miscontrolled by Ashley Barnes, who then claims the last touch came off a Brighton player when Matt Ryan picks it up. Of course, that is nonsense as we just carry on trying to claim the back pass, and Brighton will bring the ball forward and away down this right flank with Veltman. 19.5 minutes gone. Brighton only taking 1 point from their opening 3 home games. Haven't won in their last 7 here at the Amex, conceding 18 goals. They've lost 5 of their last 7 here, including that defeat against Manchester United when they thought they got a point and the final whistle had blown. But it turns out VAR was able to give Brighton a penalty, which Bruno Fernandes converted after the game was restarted. So you're never really safe, even when the final whistle goes. But to be honest, as Ashley Barnes wins his side of throw-in, gives a throw-in away to Brighton over on the far side. Burnley with just 1 away point won so far this season, their only point. That was in a 0-0 draw against West Brom. Goals have been hard to come by for the Clarets, as Mike Dean isn't happy with where the throw-in's being taken on that far side. It's eventually played in short to the feet of Basuma. And Burnley getting themselves up the pitch, but there's no real press. They're not really engaging with the Brighton defenders, but they have managed to force a mistake here, and they won back possession thanks to a stray pass from Webster. Here on the overlap is Loughton, delivers the cross. It's a low header back by Barnes to the edge of the D, hoping to find Brownhill, hooked away by Lallana. Brighton coming away, Gross with the header. It goes over the top of Danny Welbeck. He's able to control the ball and then surge forward up against Robbie Brady down this left flank. He moves into the final third. Welbeck slows down his run, looks up, tries to play a 1-2 with Mopé, gets inside the box here. Welbeck couldn't quite get the shot away, just eased off the ball thanks to the strength of James Tarkowski, and that's good defending from the Burnley centre-back. Welbeck thought he'd done enough after that 1-2 with Mopé to drive on towards the byline and maybe get the shot away. That's good physicality though by Tarkowski to keep it at 0-0.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Graham Potter will be looking for. That's why he's played these two tonight, to try and link in the final third. It's a lovely little half turn by Danny Welbeck. He got himself inside that 18-yard box, and then Mopé came to life. And I think that's important, that they're bright and they can be creative in that final third, because this is a very rigid back four.
Welbeck is a signing from on a free transfer from Watford, of course. Here he is now on the edge of the D, gets the shot away, but it's charged down well by Ben Mee, who threw his body to the floor to make the challenge and block the shot, as Welbeck this time with a header that goes well wide of Nick Pope's goal. Couldn't quite direct it when the cross was sent in, but as you say, he will offer Brighton a different dimension. Danny Welbeck, don't often see Brighton go with two up top, but Graham Potter must be confident that there's some kind of partnership that could blossom between Welbeck and Mopé, as we saw with the previous chance with the nice 1-2.
Yeah, and I think that stems from training. You know, obviously these players are top players, and there's a lot of competition for forward places, especially at Brighton, but he'll be looking for that combination. Who are going to be the two lads who can score us the goals? And then they throw into the equation just how poor this start's been for Burnley. And I think that's why, if you can get a good hour out of Welbeck tonight, I think Graham Potter will be delighted.
A long booming kick upfield by Nick Pope, which eventually dropped down here for Veltman in the right back position. Ben White's pushed off the ball, but it's already gone out of play for a throw-in, so it will just be a Brighton throw. There is striking options on the bench for Brighton, likes of Aaron Connolly, along with Alexis McAllister. Then Johan Bash, Alzate, Davy Proper and Bernardo for Brighton. As Burnley can work this ball to the centre circle, and with Matt Loughton, who's been able to get up the field fairly freely for Burnley. As much as the Brighton fullbacks are pushing on, Loughton's finding success, and here's another for Burnley on left with Charlie Taylor. That cross though is far too close to Matt Ryan. Easy take from the Australian in the Brighton goal. As for the Burnley subs this evening, There's Goodmanson, Rodriguez, Vidra, Long, Thompson and Dunn on the bench for Sean Dyche tonight. Not an awful lot of firepower. There is the likes of Jay Rodriguez and Vidra. It's still it's not the most commanding bench that Burnley could have, to be perfectly honest. They have been hit by an awful lot of injuries so far this season, but getting Ben Mee back tonight for this game is a big boost for Sean Dyche. 24 minutes gone. Brighton 0, Burnley 0. The home side trying to play out from their own midfield, and Basuma can work it wide to this right flank to bring forward Veltman. Stops on the ball in front of his manager, who looks on. Sean Dyche and Graham Potter standing at the edge of the technical areas on a cold night on the south coast. Through ball here by Lallana. Welbeck's peeled away wide to the left, a couple of yards away from the corner flag, but his pass was intercepted. Loughton will turn and clear, and that will find touch. Will it? No. Robbie Brady's clearance is kept in play well by Webster. And Brighton now starting to force Burnley a little deeper. Lallana on the far side sends in the cross, comes off the head. Gross with a chance straight towards Nick Pope, who moved well across his line to stop the German midfielder's header. And I think as that delivery was sent in by Lallana, it's a good cross. Might have just flicked off the head there of James Tarkowski, which might have helped it into the path of Pascal Gross. A good save, though, an early save from Nick Pope.
Yeah, and it just came from a little bit of a individuality play from Lallana. He's got that in the locker, hasn't he? Can stop the ball and then move it really quickly, and he entered the box, and I think it was a standard left-footed cross in there, but you're right, a little deflection fell in the pathway of Gross, and he done well, to be fair, getting his head on it, and it was a standard save for Nick Pope. But that's what we're looking for this Brighton team. Can you find Lallana in them advanced positions? He doesn't want to be dropping into a deep position because he's not creative there. He's creative in them little zones. We've just watched him there.
Just a second start this season for Pascal Gross. Started the 2-1 defeat to Spurs last Sunday. 12 goals and 16 assists during his time at Brighton. He is part of a side, certainly in the last few years, where he really has been the attacking outlet for the Seagulls. That's been somewhat replaced with the arrival of Lallana, but very encouraging to see them both in the lineup tonight. And here is Matt Ryan picking out Pascal Gross, who turns and passes into space here for Neil Maupay to bring the ball forward, 25 yards out. Through ball here for Lallana, sends in a low cross which flicks up. Welbeck couldn't quite get the touch on it that he needed to turn it towards goal. And Nick Pope quick off his line to gather the ball, keep it at 0-0.
Yeah, Brighton are just starting to turn the screw here. I mean, there's some great little forward runs by Adam Lallana. He's getting in between full-backs and centre-halves, and his delivery into the box is excellent. It's full of quality, he really is. And that's a dream for a centre-forward. When you know you've got one of these number 10s or an advancing midfielders who can pick out a pass, you know, all you've got to do is make a double run, get in front of centre-halves, and that's what Welbeck and Maupay will be looking to do tonight.
Brighton scored 4 goals so far in their 3 Premier League home games this season. Yet to find a way past the Burnley defence tonight. 0-0 at the Amex. Myself, John Howick and Sean Derry calling this one on Premier League Live. You can tweet in to @TalkSport Live to let us know where you're listening from tonight and who you're supporting on the start of match week 8. As Dwight McNeil slightly overruns the ball, and he's pickpocketed there by Tariq Lamptey, and Brighton will clear their lines. Poor pass though, collected here by the commanding figure of Ben Mee. Leaves the ball off to Westwood. Burnley with a chance to attack 30 yards out, controlling the ball out wide, working it to Loughton, delivers the cross, that deflects. Matt Ryan thought he did enough to keep it from going behind for a corner off of the touch of Basuma, but that will be a corner for Burnley and a chance for them to really show their physicality here. The likes of Barnes, Wood, Mee and Tarkowski will come forward, and this could be Burnley's chance to cause Brighton problems, Sean Derry.
Yeah, and this is what Sean Dyche will be telling his team, you know, make sure the delivery is right. Everything's about the delivery when it comes to set plays. You've got 4 real monsters there waiting to throw the head on it. We're looking at the way that Brighton have just set up inside 5 players alongside the 6-yard box.
As Sean calls them, the monsters come forward. And here is the left-footed delivery right under the crossbar of Ryan, who punches it away. There's a bicycle kick that goes just wide, an overhead kick there, which was by Robbie Brady. just wide of the far post, and that's the sort of delivery they need right under Ryan, giving him real problems there. Wood and Barnes were sniffing around the Australian goalkeeper, wasn't the best of punches clear. Brady's claiming with the overhead kick that it got a deflection on the way through. It didn't. It remains 0-0, but Burnley starting to show that they can cause problems from set plays.
Yeah, as we know, it's all about the delivery. The delivery was right underneath the crossbar, and Matt Ryan was struggling. You know, he's not the biggest goalkeeper, as we know, but when you've got two centre forwards stood in front of you, it makes it even more difficult for the goalkeeper. And I think that's what Graham Potter will be saying is, stop the cross, defend it properly, but don't let it go out for a corner, because we don't want to be defending too many of them tonight.
And Brighton have conceded 4 goals from set plays this season. And Neil Maupay took a knock, but he's back up, so should be okay to carry on. Matt Ryan playing out from the back. Burnley have certainly pressed higher up the field, and Lallana's very lucky to get away from Matt Loughton, but I'll give him credit. Had the composure to just dribble his way out of trouble and get around the Burnley fullback while he was on the edge of his own box. It's with Neil Maupay, who's dropped deep here, spreads the play over to the right flank. Lovely pass to pick out Tariq Lamptey to come and charge forward. Haven't seen enough of him tonight for Brighton. Here he is now on the overlap, tangling with Charlie Taylor. Tackle comes in and goes behind. Will be a corner. Ben Mee with the recovering challenge, so Brighton will win the corner. But my word, Charlie Taylor, after Lamptey had burst past him with the acceleration, had to be very careful there not to give away a penalty.
Well, if that would have ended up with a goal or with a penalty, I mean, the assist was incredible. It really was. Credit where credit's due. Lamptey stood on his feet and he's kept himself going. A lot of players would have gone on the floor there and looked for a penalty.
It's very lucky there, Charlie Taylor. It almost looked like it could have been a very clumsy challenge, but as Sean says, it was Tariq Lamptey who decided to stay on his feet and charge on. And Pascal Gross will take this corner for Brighton over on the far side. Their first one of the evening, half an hour in for the home side. He plays it short. Tariq Lamptey in support, back out to the edge of the box. Lallana chips the ball in, doesn't beat the Burnley defence, comes back out to Lallana. 25 yards out, edge of the penalty area, left-footed cross from this right flank. It's again fended off by the Burnley defence, but Brighton have kept possession. They've worked it out wide to Gross, low ball into the box, stabbed clear by Ben Mee. Charlie Taylor will try and clear that away. I thought that might have maybe gone past the byline. It's going to go out of play instead for a throw-in on this near side, and not the best of delivery there from Brighton. We saw how good a delivery should be from a corner from Burnley moments ago, and Brighton's short tactic didn't seem to work. Veltman will play the throw-in into the chest of Welbeck. Half-hearted appeals for handball. Veltman's cross far too close to Pope. An easy take for him, and so far the final ball for Brighton, certainly the delivery into the strikers, just hasn't been good enough.
No, you're absolutely right, John. I mean, you mentioned about the quality of delivery from a Burnley team compared to what we've just seen from this Brighton team. And yeah, you can be inventive. Of course, you want to try and occupy the centre halves of this Burnley back four. But the quality, the delivery is so important. And you'd be throwing your arms about if you're a centre half and you're the likes of Dan Burn, who is 6'5" and wants to get on the end of things. I mean, you're just not going to score with delivery like that.
Tariq Lamptey's conceded a free kick for Brighton, left his mark on Dwight McNeil. If you're playing along at home, he's more on the left flank with Brady operating on the right. McNeil is back on his feet and okay to continue. Another set piece here. These are like gold dust for Burnley, and they will send it in deep to the far post. Wood with the header. It came off the back of his head. It's been kept alive by Loughton. Low cross in, and Ben White does just enough to make the interception, then clear the ball away. Burnley have kept possession though. They find themselves parked in the final third. Low ball in is deflected. Works its way into the path of Ashley Barnes, who tries to wriggle free. Good composure from Ben White to just get hold of the ball, shift it away, and allows Webster to clear over the top of Tariq Lamptey, who seems to be popping up on that left flank on the counter-attack. Sean, that's the second time tonight we've seen that outlet for Brighton. When they do try to get the ball away, it's down the left channel, and Lamptey switching his wings.
Yeah, and that's because he's actually, listen, we know he's not the biggest, do we? So when it comes to defending corners, he's actually acting as a centre forward, and that's why he's ended up on the left wing. It's not because of his position.
Well, here's Lallana now being fed through by Maupay into the feet of Welbeck. 1-on-1! And a good save by the feet of Nick Pope. Best chance of the game for Brighton. It was good work down that left flank. Lallana moving into space with a through ball for Danny Welbeck. But when he got his chance, Nick Pope with a massive save with his feet to keep it at 0-0.
Yeah, and a wonderful assist once again by Adam Lallana. Got that vision, hasn't he? You know, it was an inch perfect pass. And did Welbeck think about the finish too much? He had a lot of time. He could have placed it a little bit wider of the feet of Nick Pope, but credit where credit's due.
Let's have a sign of rust on Welbeck's side. Here is Lallana playing the corner short to Lamptey on the edge of the box for a better angle with the cross, which he sends in. Webster went up for the header, as did Welbeck for the second ball as he challenged with Nick Pope, but he just gets a tap on the head from Ben Mee as if to say it was a fair challenge, but maybe don't do that again. As we watch the replay here of Lallana's lovely through ball, he's pulling the strings in the midfield for Brighton tonight, and it was all because of the interception by Neil Maupay. We gave him a bit of flack for his bust up in midweek and his ego. But it was his pressure there that won back possession for Brighton high up the field.
Yeah, we've got to give a lot of credit to Maupay. He's doing a lot of defensive work for his team. He intercepted it really well. Just looking at that chance for Welbeck, you know, he is a top player. We know he is. He's had some fantastic clubs and he's scored some great goals, but that might just be a case of somebody who's lacking a little bit of form, lacking a little bit of fitness as well.
Yeah, maybe the match sharpness just isn't there for Danny Welbeck. It is his first start for Brighton tonight. Came on as a sub in the 2-1 defeat against Tottenham on Sunday. Here's the man who scored that goal for the Albion. Tariq Lamptey trying to play a 1-2 with Pascal Gross. Does really well to beat his man. Cuts the ball back from the byline. No one is there though. That was terrific work from Lamptey. He did the hard part. As he squared the ball back to the edge of the D, there was no one coming onto it for Brighton.
No, it was great wing-back play. So diminutive, isn't he? Moves the ball unbelievably quick. And I think when he gets you on the back foot as well, you've got to be careful. You don't want to be leaving a lazy foot in there, because the level of gravity is so low to the ground. It gets in and around people's legs.
34 minutes gone, Brighton 0, Burnley 0. Throw in here into the chest of Adam Lallana. Veltman finding Welbeck. Nice little flick into the path of Lallana by Maupay. And Lallana goes down right on the edge of the box. And straight away, Burnley lead the protest. But this is a free kick for Brighton in a very dangerous position. And once again, we see Lallana starting to click with that front two for Brighton. It was Welbeck, then on to Maupay, both with backheel flicks. And in the end, that final ball, finding Lallana, just barged off of it by the challenge of Brady. And this is going to be a very interesting chance for the Seagulls.
Yeah, it was great interplay by the three players you've just mentioned there. He is pulling the strings, isn't he? He's popping up in some fantastic positions. I think as, you know, the half-time's looming, Graham Potter's just got to go in and go, give the ball as often as you can to Adam Lallana. He's the difference tonight for me.
Sometimes coaching can be very easy, can't it? Just give it to the best player.
Wherever he is, just find him.
That's a free kick for Brighton, and the normal candidates you'd think for Brighton Hove Albion, which would be the likes of Lallana and Gross, have left this, and Yves Bissouma has lined up. Now Bissouma has got a fairly powerful right boot on him, shall he say, and there is a 5-man Burnley wall. It's a cold night on the south coast. They've got to be very brave here, because Bissouma, with a long run-up, is going to try and absolutely lash this. Here he comes, it's low, it's straight into the thighs of one of the Burnley defenders. The second attempt is blocked, and that's charged down really well from the Burnley defence, and out they come here. Loughton will fire the ball away, it will find touch. In the end, that free kick, a waste for Brighton.
It was a little bit of, listen, it was a hit and hope, wasn't it? We know that Bissouma's got a rocket of a shot on him, and I think he was just hoping it might take a deflection, but the wall was excellent. Stood up strong, didn't vacate space, they kept themselves together, and that's exactly what you want from your wall defending a free kick like that.
It's the sort of evening where whoever made the block is going to start to feel that to sting as the evening carries on. But you can tweet into @TalkSport Live, just as NYC Guna has done. Says you really rate Potter, wagered heavily on them to finish in the top 10. They create so many chances, but they don't have a proper number 9. Potter knew this. He tried to sign Nunez, but didn't pay the money, and he went to Benfica. Luckily, Welbeck was available on a free. He's starting this evening, and a long ball over the top will try and find Welbeck. And Welbeck there. Now, was he brought down by Ben Mee? Now, Ben Mee had already played the ball. Maybe Welbeck just ran into his path. It looked a little bit clumsy. I'm sure VAR will be interested if there's anything for them to be interested about. It was a long ball over the top, and not for the first time this evening. Ben Mee just struggling with his balance there and with his footwork. It's deep to find Mopé on the halfway line, finding Lallana. Lovely turn to move that ball away and just pirouette out of trouble away from Brady inside the centre circle. Moves it on to Dan Burn, skips past his man, through ball for Lallana, drives to the byline, delivers the ball in, comes off the shoulder of Welbeck and back out here to Brady, who under pressure will clear that ball down this far right flank. Collected here by Webster, skipper for Brighton tonight, squares the ball to Pascal Gross. 35 yards out, sweeps it along to the right flank, this time to Lamptey. Sizes up his man, which is Charlie Taylor, tries to charge past him, gets doubled up, cuts it back to Veltman, shifts the ball into his right boot, delivers the cross, comes off the head of Lallana, and Burn will chase here, and he will keep that in play. That's excellent endeavour there from Burn. Didn't want to give up the ghost, and keeps the move alive for Brighton. This is a really good spell of possession. Veltman out wide here to Lamptey. Burnley being forced back. Lamptey with a 1-2, tries to drive on. Sliding tackle comes in from Dwight McNeil, and finally Burnley get a bit of a break here by conceding the throw. Yeah,
they need to take a breather here, Burnley. Been under pressure for a long time now. Just seeing that little coming together as...
Ooh. Well, looking at the replay there of that challenge by Mee on Welbeck, as Mopé gets the ball with his back to goal inside the penalty area. The pass, though, lets him down. Wasn't the right option. He had options left and right, but instead tried to give it up to Lallana, who was about 10 yards behind him on the edge of the D. Here's Webster bringing the ball away. He'll return it to the safety of his goalkeeper, Matt Ryan. You've only seen the one replay on that Ben Mee challenge on Danny Welbeck. What are your thoughts, Sean Derry?
Well, in free play I thought it would have been harsh, but I'm just looking at the replay there, and I think Ben Mee knew exactly what he was doing. I think he defended it in the right and proper way, but then he made sure that the centre forward weren't going to get anywhere near the ball, and I just thought he lifted his knee. They're harsh to be given, John, they are, but I think Ben Mee was quite clever in the way he defended that situation.
Got tangled up with Danny Welbeck as Brighton hold on to the ball on the halfway line. 41 minutes gone. Brighton 0, Burnley 0. DJ Keefe has tweeted into @TalkSport Live, says sounds like Burnley needed Peter Crouch back on the books for the bicycle kick. Big fan of you guys here in South Beach, Miami. Thank you for the picture, DJ Keefe. Looks like a lovely day there. We're not at all jealous. Here's Lamptey with a cross into the penalty area, cleared away off a penalty spot, off the head of Tarkowski. Brighton, though, once again keeping possession. Burnley can't really get out of their half at the moment. Gross with the cross, delivered to the far post. Loughton gets the call, so leaves it. Burn will go charging forward, and that's twice tonight. He's kept moves alive for Brighton just by his commitment alone, having to slot in at left wing back, and we wondered, Sean, who would be operating in that role for Brighton tonight. But he's certainly putting the work rate in.
He has, absolutely. He's got such an honesty about his game. I mean, people who obviously accuse him of being a little bit gangly as that type of wing-back, but he's productive. You know, he keeps the ball well, he keeps it with an amount of purpose, the way that he wants to play forward. And he's a threat from set plays as well, but his delivery into the front men tonight has been excellent.
You see the possession stats. Brighton 64% to the 36% of Burnley. That gives you an idea of how this game is going. Burnley happy, though, I'm sure, at 0-0, and the fact that they're frustrating Brighton and keeping them out. Because the more Brighton try to push on, the more they could leave themselves exposed. East Basuma. Well, McNeil has just collided with Lamptey. Now, I don't think there was anything too untoward with that. Looked a fairly innocuous challenge between the two. Well, Lamptey has come off the better because he's not gone down on the turf like McNeil. We have got a stoppage in the game here, and they didn't know where they were going at all. There, Sean, that's like two freight trains running into each other.
Yeah, and it looks like Dwight McNeil's just come out second best there. I think Tariq Lamptey's got more of a dead leg than anything else wrong with him, but we're looking at McNeil on the floor. He's had a quiet start to this game, Dwight McNeil. He really has. He can't get into it, and I think he's doing a lot of defensive work because of the system that Graham Potter's got with this 3 at the back and the 2 wing backs. Lamptey's playing more of a right winger, so he's having to turn his attacking play into more of a defensive play. Dwight McNeil, just listening to the 2 benches go at it, it's intriguing, isn't it, when you listen to Sean Dyche. Everything's about honesty with Sean Dyche.
It's amazing being able to hear the managers now in the current scenarios we find ourselves in 2020, with no fans allowed in football stadiums in England, but you do get to hear the instructions a lot more clearly from the managers. Sean Dyche, I'm sure, will be happier set of the 2 so far, with it 0-0 with just a minute to go until half-time, as McNeil receives a bit of treatment and will be able to carry back on as Brighton get the drop ball. And he's had 12 assists during his time at Burnley. Dwight McNeil, the 20-year-old, got a bright future ahead of him for sure. It's been very impressive for Burnley, and he does return to the field of play with 30 seconds to go until half-time.
Well, this is interesting because Sean Dyche and his bench are absolutely going ballistic on the sideline.
Good cross in by Byrne, finding Gross as he turned to get the shot away. It was charged down well by the diving challenge of Ben Mee, and Charlie Taylor will now try and clear the ball away, but he's pinged it straight at Lamptey. He was 10 yards off from him, and Brighton back on the attack with Gross. Dummy cross, created a bit of space here as he sold McNeil, tries the same move again. Ball got a little bit tangled under his feet there, couldn't quite deliver the ball in, and that is hacked away by Burnley in a minute of added on time here. Brighton 0, Burnley 0. Getting towards half-time. Long ball over the top here. Welbeck could be in. Takes the ball down well. Really good goalkeeping from Nick Pope. And Welbeck looks to the sky. That was his chance. He looks to the linesman. Wonders if he was onside. A lovely ball over the top. It was Ben White looking up. Welbeck was onside. It was a lovely ball, and the first touch just got away from him. Tried to stab it past Nick Pope, who came out, smothered the ball well, and that was a golden opportunity for Brighton right before the stroke of half-time.
Well, it was, and it was a wonderful ball by Ben White. We saw him do that so many times for Leeds United last year. You know, they've tried so hard to keep him at this football club. Great ball, great run, terrible touch.
Here's Mopé, 20 yards out. Last attack for Brighton before the half-time whistle. Byrne finding Mopé on the spin inside the box. Couldn't get his shot away. Burnley clear their lines. And Mike Dean blows the whistle for half-time. So Brighton and Burnley, both sides, struggling to find a way through in the first half. Lots of huff and puff for Brighton, but they can't find a way to blow through this Burnley defence. You think, though, Sean, that the happier the 2 managers will be based on the set of play. Sean Dyche.
Well, I mean, you look at this Brighton team, and they've really took control of this game. They really have. I mean, the percentages are about 65-35. They're probing, but I think they're probing just in the wrong areas. Try and find Lallana in a little bit more of an advanced position, because it's causing problems. This defending unit for Sean Dyche, they defend wide balls really, really well. They're not too clever in front of them, though.
James Tarkowski receiving a little bit of treatment after the half-time whistle. We'll be interested to see if he is back out for the second half. We'll join you for that in around about 10 minutes' time. But this is Premier League Live.
Evenings with James Whale on Talk Radio.
Keep connected with round-the-clock news, essential information and expert insight.
I think we've got to be very careful about the way this has all been going on.
Cutting through the confusion with everything you need to stay safe, informed and entertained.
Everyone's going on about, we should be tracking and testing, and I just don't know how that is going to happen.
Evenings with James Whale. Weeknights from 7 on Talk Radio.
In a world of 24/7 global sportscasting and instant news infotainment, one man bestrides the airwaves like a snow-capped Caledonian colossus.
Hello, I'm Jim White.
Jim White, anchorman.
Mid-morning news team, assemble.
Jim White and Natalie Sawyer, the #1 rated news source for breaking sports stories, big-name guests, and liquid showbiz charisma.
Great Odin's Raven. That's quite a transfer.
There's nothing burgundy about Jim White. Tomorrow morning from 10 on TalkSport.
In the the spring of the year 2020 AD, a deadly enemy rages like a torrent of fire between the ends of empire.
My name is Maximus Talks Sportus Pandemicus, gladiator of the sports radio. Gird up your loins and battle the invasion of COVID-19, because what you do today will echo in eternity.
Top Sport Legion, assume Tortoise formation against COVID-19.
Show this virus no mercy by keeping a distance of at least 2 meters at all times. That's 6.75 Roman feet centurions. Together, Legion, Talk Sportus can defeat it.
Talk Sportus Maximus.
On my signal, unleash hand sanitizer.
Keep it on, stay informed, and give coronavirus the red cardus.
Are you not hand sanitized?
20 years of Talk Sport.
Gentlemen, good evening.
There's no such thing as an overnight success.
Accrington Stanley 4, titanium plasmatronic death droids from the future, 0.
Excess.
I wasn't getting up, I was just getting in.
Excitement.
Excuse me, Alan.
And extremely strong opinions.
I spend my life covering the big game at the big level.
On DAB, medium wave, and on your smart speaker. 20 years of Talk Sport.
For all the latest news, opinions and advice, listen to Talk Radio throughout the day and stay informed as events unfold.
We're now in a position to start implementing the next part of our plan.
Find out what's happening now and what may happen next, all day, every day.
If the government gets to grips with the plan, then surely we will be able to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Listen now on DAB Digital Radio, online, via the Talk Radio app, or ask your smart speaker to play Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Amex. You're listening to TalkSport's coverage of Brighton and Hove Albion against Burnley. I'm your host, John Howick, and alongside me is the former Leeds, QPR and Crystal Palace midfielder Sean Derry. This is Premier League Live. Well, Brighton and Burnley are stalemates at the half-time whistle. Brighton, though, have been on top in this game, but they can't find a way through that stubborn Burnley defence. A slip here and an early chance for Welbeck. Right side of the penalty area, back to Lamptey and fired over the bar from close range. Well, what a let-off for Burnley and for Ben Mee. Back in the starting lineup, that long ball over the top of the Burnley defence. Welbeck sneaking in behind. Ben Mee slipped, couldn't make the clearance. Welbeck got to the ball first, cut it back to Lamptey, who blazed over the bar.
What a terrible decision it was. Ben Mee should have just dealt with it. He lost his footing, and this is where Lamptey's popped up at certain moments of this Premier League season, right involved in the 6-yard box, and he should have hit the target. He should have scored there.
A deep cross in which hits the crossbar and beats Matt Ryan. Well, that was misjudged by the Australian. Didn't quite know where that was going. It was Loughton with the cross, right footed. I think he's looked up and he's seen Ryan off his line. He's tried to lob him, tipped the underside of the bar. Here's Lallana now being fed through by Mopé into the feet of Welbeck. 1-on-1 and a good save by the feet of Nick Pope. Best chance of the game for Brighton. It was good work down that left flank. Lallana moving into space with a through ball for Danny Welbeck. But when he got his chance, Nick Pope with a massive save with his feet.
Wonderful assist once again by Adam Lallana. Got that vision, hasn't he? You know, it's an inch perfect pass. And
yeah, Brighton 0, Burnley 0 at half-time here at the Amex. Will we get a goal in the second half? Who knows, but the home side have looked the most likely to do it. And of course Burnley bottom of the Premier League as it stands. Well, following us tonight, Toby Gillis will be making the call between Southampton and Newcastle United. But Southampton with a big blow, of course, after losing Danny Ings at the weekend. And the Saints manager Ralph Hasenhüttl has been saying, without having Danny Ings, that's quite a blow to the Saints.
He will get a surgery tomorrow morning, a small one, hopefully, but it is one, and that means that we don't have him for the next 4 to 6 weeks. It can be worse, as I said, but is out, and this is sure not a good news for us. We can definitely say that we are more than only Danny Ings. I think we scored also in the last game 3 other goals, so it's a big loss for us that we don't have him, but it's important now for the other players to give us alternatives. I mean, nobody has to play like Danny Ings in the moment. It's not possible, but also not necessary. Every player who comes on the pitch should play his best possible game.
that game following this one here this evening at the Amex. Sean Dyche, of course, will be the happier of the two managers because it's still at 0-0. But Sean Derry alongside me tonight. The longer it stays like this, I'm sure Burnley will be the happier of the two teams, but they don't really look like scoring or threatening Burnley, even really on the counter. I mean, the best bet they've got is set pieces, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right, John. I do. I look at the wide players in particular. You've got Robbie Brady on one side, Dwight McNeil the other side. They've not really got a lot of ball. They're not getting into the final third, and they're not putting the ball into the box like Sean Dyche will be expecting them to do. Flip that, Graham Potter's spending a lot of time in possession, his team are. Mainly from the back, building through the thirds. But just in the last 10 minutes, Adam Lallana's popped up in some great little positions. But how long can Danny Welbeck last on this pitch? Because he's making some fantastic runs in behind this back four.
I was going to ask you about that because it is his first start. He did come on as a sub against Tottenham on Sunday, so he did feature there. But, I mean, we can't expect him, I don't think, to last the whole 90 minutes. And there are options on the bench, certainly with Aaron Connolly. But the longer it goes on at 0-0, if you're Graham Potter, do you seek to change things? I mean, because you are the home side, but what does that really mean when you haven't got fans in the stadium, to be honest? But, you know, do you look to change things and try and take all 3 points? Or will he be cautious and think, you know what, if we can't find a way through, point isn't the worst result in the world?
Well, I think tonight is a 3-point game for both managers. I honestly do. I look at Graham Potter's recent results, you know, with this Brighton team, and the accusation would be aimed at him as that, well, they do spend 60, 62, 63% in possession, but what do they actually do with it? You know, we're looking at this team tonight and they build nicely through the thirds, but this is a game for Brighton to win tonight. Sean Dyche on the flip side will be looking at Ben Mee and he'll be coming in and saying, just don't concede, we'll take a 0-0 all day.
And we've been speaking about Adam Lallana and how he really is working the magic in the midfield. He's the vocal point of every attack that Brighton use, and it's good for him, isn't it? Because, you know, he suffered a long spell on the sidelines, you know, during his time certainly at Liverpool. Came to Brighton on a free transfer, which looked like good business, but of course they're taking a risk with his track record. He really is starting to make the Seagulls tick, and it's been evident in the first half that he still has got that quality.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a different level, isn't he? You know, his vision, the way that he approaches the ball, he's always on the half turn, looking for space. He finds space where nobody else can see it. The sad thing about when you're watching Adam Lallana for a Brighton, with respect to Brighton, of course, is that he's not got the front three of Salah, Mane and Firmino to bounce off these passes. He's always looking one step ahead, and sadly the two centre forwards for Mopé and Welbeck, they're just not on his wavelength tonight.
We had a tweet in to @TalkSport Live from Yatunde Ajayi. He says Lallana's quality is on display. Lamptey is such a good player to watch. I need him to drop some attacking returns tonight just for the sake of my fantasy Premier League team. We've certainly seen the likes of Lallana and Lamptey come forward. And just very quickly, Sean, you know, Lamptey's the player, as much as Lallana's pulling the strings, Lamptey's that player where they are going to get some penetration down that right flank.
Yeah, definitely. You know that Dan Burn on the other side's probably going to keep his defensive shape a little bit more than Tariq Lamptey. And when Lamptey does get his 1v1s in wide areas up against Charlie Taylor, he looks really threatening.
I don't think we're going to have any changes so far at the break, so we'll be back very shortly for the resumption of the second half. Brighton, of course, looking for their first win at home so far this season. Burnley, rock bottom going into tonight, just 1 point so far, yet to win. It's their worst ever start to a Premier League season. Can they take something from this game? This is Premier League Live.
Evenings with James Whale on Talk Radio.
Keep connected with round-the-clock news, essential information and expert insight.
I think we've got to be very careful about the way this has all been going on.
Cutting through the confusion with everything you need to stay safe, informed and entertained.
Everyone's going on about, we should be tracking and testing, and I just don't know how that is going to happen.
Evenings with James Whale. Weeknights from 7 on Talk Radio.
In a world of 24/7 global sportscasting and instant news infotainment, one man bestrides the airwaves like a snow-capped Caledonian colossus.
Hello, I'm Jim White.
Jim White, anchorman.
mid-morning news team assemble.
Jim White and Natalie Sawyer, the #1 rated news source for breaking sports stories, big name guests, and liquid showbiz charisma.
Great Odin's Raven. That's quite a transfer.
There's nothing burgundy about Jim White. Tomorrow morning from 10 on TalkSport.
In the spring of the year 2020 AD, a deadly enemy rages like a torrent of fire between the ends of empire.
My name is Maximus Talks Sportus Pandemicus, gladiator of the sports radio. Gird up your loins and battle the invasion of COVID-19, because what you do today will echo in eternity.
TalkSport Legion, assume tortoise formation against COVID-19.
Show this virus no mercy by keeping a distance of at least 2 meters at all times. That's 6.75 Roman feet centurions. Together, Legion, TalkSportus can defeat it.
TalkSportus Maximus.
On my signal, unleash hand sanitizer.
Keep it on, stay informed, and give coronavirus the red cardus.
Are you not hand sanitized?
20 years of TalkSport.
Gentlemen, good evening.
There's no such thing as an overnight success.
Accrington Stanley 4, titanium plasmatronic death droids from the future, 0.
Excess.
I wasn't getting up, I was just getting in.
Excitement.
Excuse me,
And extremely strong opinions.
I spend my life covering the big game at the big level.
On DAB, medium wave, and on your smart speaker. 20 years of TalkSport.
For all the latest news, opinions and advice, listen to Talk Radio throughout the day and stay informed as events unfold.
We're now in a position to start implementing the next part of our plan.
Find out what's happening now and what may happen next, all day, every day.
If the government gets to grips with the plan, then surely we will be able to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Listen now on DAB Digital Radio, online, via the Talk Radio app, or ask your smart speaker to play Talk Radio.
Well, welcome back. You're listening to TalkSport's coverage of Brighton and Hove Albion against Burnley from the Amex Stadium. I'm your host, John Howick, and alongside me is the former Leeds, QPR and Crystal Palace midfielder Sean Derry. This is Premier League Live. The two teams back out onto the field of play, getting ready for the second half. Danny Welbeck with an embrace with one of the Burnley players. Smile on his face, his first start for Brighton tonight, but yet to find the back of the net. He had the best chance right before the half-time whistle. A good low save by the feet of Nick Pope. And I do wonder, Sean Derry, as this game begins to grow on, as we get ready for the start of the second half, how much confidence and psychologically the fact that these teams are struggling, that will start to play on both sets of players' minds.
Yeah, it's a great point to make, John. It really is. A look at both the teams, and they're going to be low, aren't they, in confidence? That's the case tonight. We spoke about the importance of both teams trying to maximise with 3 points. You know, again, I talk about the start of this second half. So important for both teams.
We're back underway with Burnley kicking off and attacking from left to right. Lawson bringing the ball out from defence, looking for a 1-2, doesn't come forward, in fact it goes all the way back. It's with Tarkowski and Ben Mee, that ever familiar partnership for Burnley. Ben Mee out after a long time on the sidelines. That was a big boost for Sean Dyche this evening to have his captain back in the starting lineup. He's one of 2 changes for the Burnley team. Brighton making 3 changes tonight, recalling the out of favour Neil Maupay after the striker had some disciplinary action earlier this week from his manager. Matt Ryan also returning in goal, and Danny Welbeck getting his first start tonight as it's rolled back towards Nick Pope. Not the best of kicks though, no real distance on it, a lot of height, didn't really go anywhere. He's Basuma with a clumsy challenge, doesn't win possession. Burnley get the ball and a chance for Burnley to perhaps build a rare attack, but even when they get the ball, very slow to get it forward. It was Brownhill in the middle of the midfield, and Burnley seemed very happy to sort of draw Brighton onto them and maybe try and get them out of position.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no real forward runs, is there, in this Burnley team? Even Dwight McNeil, he always wants to come short, facing up the play, shows his number to his opposition all the time. He never double runs and goes in behind and puts this wing back on the back foot. Everything's very it just looks like a normal Burnley team that we've been accustomed to watching over the last 8 years. And they play in straight lines, they play second balls a lot, and there's no real inventiveness in this Burnley team.
Here they are now with Brady, and they still, while Sean Derry was talking, haven't left their own half, so I'll run you through the starting lineups once again for this resumption of the second half. Ryan in goal for Brighton, a back three of Veltman, White and Webster. Then we have Lamptey as a surging fullback on the right with Dan Burn on the left. A midfield trio of Gross, Lallana and Basuma, and then Mopé partners Danny Welbeck up front for Brighton in the second half. As for Burnley, Pope in goal, defence from right to left of Loughton, Tarkowski, Ben Mee and Charlie Taylor. Then on the right it's Brady, and then Westwood, Brownhill and McNeil on the left, finishing off the midfield quartet. And then Chris Wood partners Ashley Barnes up front for Burnley. 3 minutes into this second half, still Brighton 0, Burnley 0. Barnes goes deep to receive the ball from the throw-in, almost back on his own halfway line. Charlie Taylor with a heavy touch, charges past though Tariq Lamptey. Now the cross comes in, looking for Barnes, can't challenge with Ryan, and an easy take for the Brighton goalkeeper.
Yeah, another example of this Burnley team, just wanting to put the ball in the box at the earliest opportunity. They really do, and if you set up as a back three, it's quite an easy ball to defend. I mean, a lot of the balls are just going high into the goalkeeper's grasps to be a little bit more inventive, hopefully, But I look at the bench and I just look at it, John, and think, who can change it? I'm not too sure anybody can. It's going to be somebody else coming onto the field and playing exactly the same as what we've seen this opening 48 minutes.
Here's Brighton coming forward now with Byrne receiving the ball midway inside the Burnley half. Down on this left flank, just cuts it back to find the support here of Webster, switches the play, a lovely lofted diagonal ball, finding Tariq Lamptey, good control, taking that down off of his shin, spinning and finding Pascal Gross, whose low cross is cleared back towards Veltman. You would expect we would get goals here, just because the fact that Brighton have scored in every Premier League game so far this season, and they've only kept one clean sheet. So it would be surprised if it does remain 0-0, as shocking as that prediction is, based on what we've seen in the first half. But there's firepower in Graham Potter's lineup tonight. It's just about finding a way through a Burnley defence that has been leaky against most of the big teams so far this season, conceding 3 against Chelsea at the weekend. And it's with Wood on the halfway line now for Burnley. Burnley haven't won any of their last 10 top flight meetings played away from home on a Friday night. It's a very specific stat, but Charlie Taylor on the ball now, and their away form, much like their overall form, still waiting to get up and running with a first victory on the road and a first victory in the Premier League this season. Just 1 point to their name under Sean Dyche. They have a very good season last season, finishing 10th in the Premier League, his second highest Premier League finish. He's still well thought of and well regarded around the Premier League. He's a very meticulous coach, gets the finer things right the way down. They're very well organised, but maybe with that organisation comes, Sean Derry, the lack of creativity.
Yeah, I mean, out of possession, they have a real rigid 4-4-2, and the two centre forwards take turns dropping into that little half and half position in front of the midfield. But again, we're just looking at a fine example there. Robbie Brady's got the ball, he's dropped his shoulder on the inside, and there's not one runner in behind. Ashley Barnes looked to come into feet, Chris Woods looks to come into feet. I mean, it's turned into a corner because it's took a deflection, and they might just be looking at these corners thinking, this is how we're going to win the game.
I think Matt Ryan's made what could be a very dangerous mistake there, because he was quite happy to watch the ball just roll behind, thinking it was a goal kick, didn't realise the last touch came off a teammate, and inadvertently Burnley have suddenly got a really good opportunity from this corner. They'll send forward the likes of Mee and Tarkowski, Barnes will be a nuisance underneath Ryan as it's delivered in towards that far post. Ryan does very well to punch the ball away. Protests towards Mike Dean, the referee, claiming he was being crowded out there, but that is exactly the sort of delivery that Burnley thrive on.
It's like a bully boy tactic, isn't it? You know, you got the big boys in front of the smaller goalkeeper and they're just laying it on him. He done well there, Matt Ryan. Got a strong hand to it.
Yeah, recalled to the lineup after Sanchez was given a debut against Tottenham. That seemed to be a tactical change. It might well have been a case of just giving Ryan a rest. Don't often get a chance to swap goalkeepers, and there's quite a congested fixture list for all the Premier League clubs, really, considering how late we started this season. Don't often see goalkeepers rotated, but we saw Everton do the same when Jordan Pickford was given a rest at the weekend. Ryan back with no fuss, no drama, nothing like the storyline that seems to follow Neil Maupay, with him being recalled. He's been relatively quiet, been part of the build-up for Brighton in moves, but yet to trouble Nick Pope.
Yeah, look at them. I mean, we were speaking off air, wasn't we, about the relationships with centre forwards, and this Maupay and Welbeck at times look like they can link well, but at other times it's as if they've never played together before.
They weren't on the field on Sunday when Welbeck made his debut coming off the bench. It's the first time they've started together as Lamptey makes the tackle on Charlie Taylor, who rides the challenge well, and if he won't get the free kick, he thinks he's at the very least is going to get a corner, which I think he has done. He protests and wants a free kick, but the corner, once again, is going to be the best avenue for Burnley to try and find a goal. Just watching a replay of the challenge, Lamptey came in. Well, he almost came over the top of the ball, but did well to sort of, show enough restraint in it. Will just be a corner.
I like Lamptey, his game, isn't he? You know, he's only 5'5", but he's all over the pitch.
Tenacious defender, Tariq Lamptey. Another corner though for Burnley. This delivery's not as good. Bassoon with a very acrobatic clearance at the near post. That's going to be headed away upfield by Ben White for Brighton, and Burnley, on the rare occasion they are in the Brighton half, just send it straight back to Nick Pope, and I suppose they'll stay upfield and maybe he'll launch it long, which is exactly what he's going to do. Gets the ball out from his feet. It's a very interesting pass from Nick Pope. It's gone straight out of play in front of his manager Sean Dyche, who gets very animated on the touchline. Not the sort of delivery he would have wanted, and he shakes his head. A very bemused look on the face of Sean Dyche. We can lip read Sean, we can't repeat it for our listeners, but he's not best pleased, shall we say.
If he could just explain his face. He can't believe that the goalkeeper, to start with, he's got the whole pitch in front of him and he's nearly put it out for a throw-in.
That just adds to the frustration of Sean Dyche. Haven't been doing very well away from home this season. That is where they've got their only point so far, conceding 7 goals in 3 games on the road. Keeping it tight though here. 54.5 minutes gone. Still 0-0. It's Loughton who gets the ball down from the free kick. It was knocked on off the head of Tarkowski. It's sent in by Loughton. Poor delivery. No one can get near it, and it's going to go behind for a goal kick. And Sean Derry been running a poll on our @TalkSport Live Twitter page, asking people what they think the final score will be, and the overwhelming result is 51.6% Brighton, 9.4% Burnley, and 39% for the draw. Can't say we're surprised.
No,
I don't think.
No, absolutely. I think at this moment in time, with how this second half started, I'll be joining that 39%, I think, John.
I think if any team's going to win it, it probably would be Brighton, but the longer it stays at 0-0, Burnley will always feel like they've got a chance. They've made it very tough for teams this season, although they have been losing games. Certainly the match against Tottenham, they made it hard. They got that 0-0 draw against West Brom. But it's the fact they've struggled to score, haven't scored in their last 3 games. And unless you can force the opposition to perhaps concede an own goal, if your own players aren't scoring, you're going to struggle to win matches.
Well, the moments in the first half where they looked threatening Brighton was when they moved the ball quicker than what they are at this moment in time. They're very slow in possession in the back three. You know, as soon as the build-up play takes place, to try and break down this real structured 4-4-2, you've got to be quick in possession. And you've got to look forward as often as possible. It's too square, too predictable at the minute.
Yeah, Brighton going a little bit static when they try to come forward. Long ball posted up by Lallana. There is options on the bench for Graham Potter. No Trossard, though, for Brighton tonight. Here's Aaron Connolly and Alexis McAllister, along with Johan Bash and maybe even Alzate, but the rest of the players are fairly defensive now. Here's a good through ball, finding Gross, pulling wide inside the penalty area, sends the cross in. Welbeck with the header, the ball dropped down, wasn't cleared by Taylor. Now Lallana with a shot, did that hit an arm? They appeal for it, they carry on Brighton, they've kept possession. Gross with the cross, Pope comes off his line and claws it away and behind for a corner. Now VAR might well have a look at this. Mike Dean is saying to the players that he will be guided in his headset by Michael Oliver at Stockley Park. Now Charlie Taylor threw his body at the ball there, Sean, but I think his arms were kept in a natural position quite close to his body when he made the block. Yeah, and Mike Dean's just explaining that to Adam Lallana at this moment in time. He's gone and he's had to throw his body at it because that's what you do in front of goal, but he kept his arms as closely by his side of his body as possible. Brilliant block by Charlie Taylor. It's going to be a corner for Brighton. That's their consolation prize by the looks of it. Pascal Gross will collect the ball and bounce it a few times before trotting across to that right corner flag. He's played it short here to Lallana. Brighton again don't tend to sling the ball in. Lamptey with an attempted cross, it deflects back out to Gross, all on his own. A spinning ball on the right flank, sends it across. Webster with the header, it's always climbing over the bar, landed on the roof of the net. Another chance where Nick Pope hasn't really been tested. It was a good delivery from Pascal Gross, and Webster did well to try and divert the header towards goal, but as you say, Brighton just really struggling to find a way through Burnley here. 0-0. Well, they've made the decision not just to put the ball in the box from the first option from the corners, because they know that they're up against 4 or 5 very, very big, tall, aggressive centre halves for Sean Dyche's team. So to have that little bit of rotation on the outside of the box, I'd just like to see if 1 or 2 of these Brighton players dropped the shoulder on the edge of the box and actually tested Pope, because there's a chance. Here's Welbeck now, winning the ball back from Brighton, giving off to Mopé, 20 yards out with a try. It's right along the ground, didn't get any sort of connection on the shot, and it almost dribbles into the path of Nick Pope. And what a run Danny Welbeck made there as well. Fantastic run. It gets in behind and sends that through ball for Mopé, but very tame effort, didn't really get the backlift needed to generate any power. Now here's Barnes holding the ball up inside the penalty area, rolls it back towards Brownhill, fires over the bar. In fact, it was McNeil with a chance to put it over the crossbar, and both sides being rather toothless at either end. Unfortunately, it's not the most entertaining 0-0 we've seen so far this season. It doesn't look like the deadlock's going to be broken anytime soon. No, I think we've just seen a highlight package there of about a minute that epitomises both of these teams at this moment in time. I think producer James did very well to produce that minute. I wonder if it was just going to be a mixture of throw-ins and corners, to be fair, put with some jazzy music, but he made it sound a lot more close than it was. Welbeck had that great chance though, didn't he, the end of the first half against Nick Pope, and you just wonder if that was a man in form and a man maybe who played a few more games this season, he might have tucked that away. Yeah, and we've seen him finish like that. I mean, in moments of his career he's been quite a decent finisher, but not tonight. He looks like a man who needs games. We're at the hour mark. Brighton Hove Albion 0, Burnley 0. John Howick here and Sean Derry alongside me. Live commentary from the Amex. Graham Potter's been making a few notes on a bit of paper, which means he's either making a change or getting his weekend shopping ready. Here's Tariq Lamptey, pass finding Lallana inside the centre circle, back to Webster. Brighton trying to do what they did more in the first half, which is play a high line and push Burnley back, make them drop deep, see if they can carve out any chances. Lallana tries to spin away from his man, can't find a way forward, so gives it back to Webster. He charges a good 10-15 yards. Now out wide here for Byrne, delivers the cross, doesn't find Welbeck. That's cleared away by Taylor. Didn't really get the call, wasn't under any sort of pressure, and that clearance has been kept alive by Brighton and Lamptey. Back to Gross on the overlap here is Veltman with the cross, too close to Pope, off his line, and an easy take as Dan Byrne trots past him I mean, there's no urgency in Burnley when they get the ball. Burns out of position running past the goalkeeper, and Nick Pope's first instinct surely must be to launch that ball upfield and get the counter-attack away, but he just slows the tempo down and gets everyone back for Burnley in shape.
Yeah, we spoke about what potentially looks like a good result for Burnley tonight, and you'd say a draw, wouldn't you? You know, they've come here and they're not really pressing for this goal. I'm looking at Lallana, he's getting a little bit frustrated, dropping really deep in this game.
Yeah, coming out of position so he can try and get the ball and be more involved in the action for Brighton. As Lamptey continues the attack, here's Pascal Gross. Out wide to Lamptey again, short passes on the right flank. Lamptey's left-footed cross is poor, straight towards Tarkowski, who volleys it away. First time of asking. Brighton still keeping possession midway inside the Burnley half. 0-0 after 62 minutes. Lamptey finding Gross. Cuts back, the German looks up. Left-footed, high hanging ball. But Burn looks to be playing almost as a third striker for Brighton. That's the second time they've launched a ball into the box and he's been there, and it's not been from a set piece. I do wonder if maybe they're just getting Burn to push on a little bit deeper in that left wing-back role.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance that if he can put a deep ball into the far stick, Dan Burn might get on the end of it. I mean, it's not really a Brighton style of play, but what it is making happen is Robbie Brady's playing as a second fullback, and that's why Burnley can't get up the field.
Here's Lallana now trying to find Welbeck. Gets stuck under the boots of Welbeck. Might come here to Gross with a low shot, deflects up in the air inside the penalty area. Cleared away though in the end by Charlie Taylor. They'll boot this ball upfield and away, and the clearance echoes around the empty Amex Stadium. Brighton winning back possession. Loose ball though, Dan Burn won't get there, and now Burnley could try and break. It's 3 against 4. It's Barnes taking a tangle on the edge of the box, tumbles to the ground. Mike Dean not interested, and Brighton come away with possession. Gross looks up, Lamptey started his run and he's fired it down the right flank. Lamptey tries to go chasing after it. Nick Pope comes off of his goal line and fires that ball into touch to concede the throw.
Yeah, a little breakaway by Burnley there, just didn't seem to get it under control, did he? Barnes, just seeing the replay now again. I'm sure he's delighted Ben Mee's back in his defensive position tonight, because that's 2 fantastic blocks he's made.
It does make such a difference, doesn't it, having a player of his quality. Unbeaten in 8 career appearances versus Brighton, trying to stretch that to 9 tonight after his return. Hasn't played since a 1-0 defeat against a 1-0 win, against Crystal Palace back in June. He actually scored in that game but suffered a thigh injury. Here's Lamptey now with the cross, directed to the far post. Burn tries to join the attack, but it can't get there. It's cleared away only as far as Basuma, 20 yards out in the centre. Now worked out wide for Dan Burn, almost playing as a left winger for Brighton. Cutting the ball back here to Basuma. Now squared to Webster. Brighton getting a lot higher up inside the Burnley half, trying to find an opening. Lamptey with the cross, you could hear the groan. Didn't quite get it right, but my word, Dan Burn, that ball coming over his shoulder, did it beautifully to take it down and get it under control. Sends the ball back into the mixer. It's cleared away by Tarkowski. Low ball in, trying to find Mopé with the pass. That's cut out and cleared away. And now we've seen Burnley defending back inside their own half. And this is what Graham Potter will want, giving on signs of encouragement there from his dugout. He'll want Burnley to be forced back and hemmed in, and hoping that Brighton can find a way through and a way to stretch them as the ball goes out for a Brighton throw.
Yeah, and it's a back 6 now for Burnley. It really is. The 2 wingers, they're dropping back as double full-backs. The centre forwards, Barnes and Wood, are dropping as double midfielders. They just can't get out. And this is the time now. Look at it, 65 minutes gone. If Brighton can just improve the pace of their attack, I think they can break down this Burnley team.
I think it's safe to say, even at this early stage in the second half, whoever scores the first goal will probably win this match. They might only need 1 goal. Here's Basuma coming across the halfway line. Yves Basuma can work it out wide. He scored in the 2-1 win over Burnley back in July, the last game of last season. Squares it to Lallana, 30 yards out, looks up, charges forward. He might think about a shot here, Lallana. Instead tries to feed it through to Burn. Does find him. With his back to goal, he holds the ball up. Burn helping out Lallana here and maintaining possession for Brighton. Burnley back with what is almost a back 7 at this point. It's cleared away and into touch in the end by the retreating Robbie Brady, and now we could be seeing an attacking change for Burnley. Jay Rodriguez is stripped off and ready to come on. I apologise for the language if you heard what Sean Dyche was shouting there from the touchline as Burns' cross is deflected out of play once more. Rodriguez is getting ready to come on. Now I wonder if this is going to be a change for either Barnes or Wood, as Burn still tries to make inroads, can't find a way past Brady, throw in for Brighton. Burn will throw it back deeper here to Webster, still waiting on that Burnley change. No sign of any substitutions for Graham Potter and for Brighton. Put out wide here to Veltman. Now square to Webster. Started all 7 Premier League games for Brighton this season, alongside Veltman and White, on loan at Leeds last season. Through ball here from Webster, couldn't quite find Morpay, and that's rolled back towards Nick Pope to clear upfield. Jay Rodriguez might not come on at this point if Burnley or Brighton don't put the ball out of play. Here's Basuma winning back possession. Lallana looks up. Bit of space here for Neil Maupay now, operating down the left channel, gets inside the penalty area. Maupay shifts onto his right with the low shot. It's blocked really well by James Tarkowski, who stayed with him stride for stride. Maupay thought he did enough to just drop his shoulder and shift the ball onto his right before getting the strike away. Good defending though once again by the Burnley centre-backs, 0-0.
And this is the difference when they play forward early, this Brighton team. If they can get out of their feet as soon as possible and look for that forward pass, you can break down this Burnley team. But what they're doing is having touch after touch after touch, taking too many touches on the ball, and it's a slow build-up. Big chance here for the corner.
Corner for Brighton from the left. It's going to be Gross. Again, it's played short. Again, it's to Lallana. He'll send it to the far post. It's overhit, though, towards Dan Burn, and that will go out of play for a throw-in. And that, I don't think, Sean, in this entire game so far, in the 68 minutes, we've actually seen Brighton, when they have a corner, just send it in first time.
No, they don't. They're just refusing to do that. They really are. They're trying to build them. They're trying to be inventive, but Burnley come back with all their bodies. They have 10 inside the 18-yard box at all times. They're not leaving 2 up top, so there's no space to be creative.
Jay Rodriguez, who was waiting to come on moments ago, I don't know if he's been told to sit down, but that sub still hasn't happened.
I think Sean Dyche doesn't want to make a substitution while the ball is in his half, and it's been in there for a long time.
Well, I don't think he's going to be able to make one, because they haven't been able to leave their half for a long period, as you've been saying. Here's Maupay's pass, finding Tariq Lamptey in the final third now. Again, lots of yellow Burnley shirts ahead of him, so he makes a diagonal run going away from the Burnley goal, loses possession. He's Basuma, though, will win it back for Brighton. Nice stabbed pass to find Dan Burn. It's back to Basuma once more. Brighton on the halfway line trying to build. 69 minutes gone. Brighton 0, Burnley 0. Dan Burn cutting infield. Now giving it back to Lallana. It's just behind him. And in fact, that's going to go behind for a goal kick. And maybe now we will see the change. And it's going to be for Ashley Barnes, which is a bit of a surprise. I know he's still coming back to full fitness, Ashley Barnes, but taking him off, that sort of removes that physical outlet for Burnley, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I mean, it's a light for light substitution. I mean, we've seen, haven't we, Jay Rodriguez has got that capacity to score from something out of nothing. He's scored some fantastic goals in his career. I mean, this is a night where, you know, these centre forwards have absolutely been fed on scraps. There's been no quality into the front two. There've been no crosses with any relevance into the final third either. And it must be so frustrating if you're playing for Burnley as a centre forward.
Well, 70 minutes gone. First change for Burnley. Ashley Barnes going off and Jay Rodriguez coming on. He's been out for 4 weeks due to an ankle injury, but he's returned as a sub in his last 3 games, and now his 4th here coming on tonight on the South Coast. I'm surprised Brighton haven't made a change, and also that Danny Welbeck is still out there on his first start after 70 minutes. Here is Gross feeding the ball here for Maupay. Left flank, Maupay trying to cut infield. He's on the edge of the box. Maupay on the overlap is Gross. Sends the cross in, no one there. Lamptey arriving late. Really good block by the chest of Charlie Taylor. he has put his body on the line tonight, throwing himself at absolutely everything. And after Mopé, his opportunity to shoot disappeared. The move was kept alive by Gross. Lamptey arriving at the far post. Really good block by Charlie Taylor.
Yeah, it was. And as much as they've not been a threat in the final third, they've defended so well in the defensive third. All four of these defenders have been brilliant.
Brighton again with the short corner, and again it'll be sent in from a different angle. Byrne is climbing all over the back there of James Tarkowski, of Chris Wood, excuse me, and that will be a free kick for Burnley. I mean, you can tweet into @TalkSportLive, just as NYC Gunnar has done. So Sean Dyche has done well to stabilise Burnley in the league, but surely this is the year they go down. I can't see them getting 20 points this season. It's really poor. If they do get new ownership, I can't see them retaining the services of Sean Dyche. That's a little bit harsh. 8 years into his reign here with Burnley, but based on tonight's performance, Sean Derry, you would worry about Burnley this season if things don't start to improve soon.
Yeah, you would, of course, you know, and tonight's performance, it's been poor up to this moment in time, but I think Sean Dyche has got a bit more credit in the bank than what certain people are saying about him. Looking at the subs, you mentioned the subs for Burnley, we've seen Jay Rodriguez come on. Perhaps it's time for a McAllister. Can he come on and can he insert some inventiveness into this Brighton team, or can Aaron Connolly come on and, you know, sort something out in the final third? It's becoming quite stale, this way of playing.
I'm sure we will see Connolly at some stage. I can't imagine Welbeck will finish the full 90 minutes, but I could be surprised. Here is Gross, 20 yards out, high hanging across towards Byrne. It's nowhere near him, it's cleared away by Brady. That's a bit of a waste from Brighton. The current tactic, instead of playing out and trying to work an opening, just seems to be, we'll get it out wide, then we'll sling it across. Charlie Taylor will clear this ball away under pressure from two Brighton attackers. Up towards Chris Wood. Now the first touch is here for Jay Rodriguez. Hair tied up in a bun, but he's got the red boots as well. And eventually it's worked back again to Charlie Taylor, and Burnley doing what we saw in the first half. They're just being very slow inside their own half, operating about 20 yards outside of their own box, and they're looking to draw Brighton onto them, try to get them out of shape, and then they'll eventually try and come forward.
You've just seen a left winger for Burnley drop into a defensive area, centre half's area for Burnley. No wonder they're not creating anything.
I don't quite know what it's going to achieve, because Brighton aren't suddenly going to send forward the whole team and leave themselves totally exposed. It does seem a very negative style of play from Sean Dyche. Graham Potter looks on, has another few words with some of his coaching staff. He must be thinking about a change, surely. 15 minutes to go or so, and it's still 0-0.
Yeah, but, you know, I know what it's like when you're up against it like Sean Dyche is. You know, you just need a result to get you going. And if it's going to be a horrible 0-0 away from home against a team in and around you at the bottom of the league, do you know, sometimes you just got to take it and build on it going into the next home performance.
Veltman concedes a throw-in down by his own corner flag, which is the highest Burnley have been in the Brighton half in this whole second half, I think. Last 10 minutes, the possession stats, 85% to the 15 in Brighton's favour. Just shows you how really it's only one team that's been trying to make inroads. But, of course, it's all about what you do with possession. You wouldn't put it past Burnley snatching something. All the time it's 0-0. Charlie Taylor with the throw. Down to the feet here of Brownhill. Back to Charlie Taylor, making his 250th career appearance in English football, and he wins himself and his side a free kick after Tariq Lamptey lashed at his heels. And this will be what Burnley have been waiting for in this second half. 35 yards out, free kick, just the left side of the penalty area. The likes of Rodriguez, Wood, me and Tarkowski going forward.
Yeah, this is the opportunity. They've not had any foothold of this second half, but this is a great chance for Burnley.
Mike Dean going through the requirements there of Neil Mopé in the one-man wall that he finds himself 10 yards away from Westwood's delivery. It's sent in, me with the header, couldn't get the contact, and it's going to go behind for a goal kick. And Ben Mee, a little bit gingerly, hobbles away from that chance. He's only come back from a thigh injury tonight after being out since the summer. He might have just been onside, but when he rose in between 3 Brighton defenders, it must be said. He didn't really challenge him in the air at all. Couldn't get the necessary contact needed to really challenge Matt Ryan in the Brighton goal.
Yeah, we're just seeing Ben Mee stretching his calves at this moment in time. He's gone down. I think he's got a problem here, Ben Mee.
This will be a worry for Sean Dyche. He does have defensive options on the bench in terms of Kevin Long and Jimmy Dunn. And I think Sean Dyche doesn't want Ben Mee to come off. You think he's telling him to just carry on. Mike Dean is saying, look, I think you're going to need a sub. Ben Mee is just stretching things out. Now, I don't think that's cramped, Sean Derry. I think he might have a problem here, a much bigger problem for Sean Dyche and for Burnley.
Yeah, and it'd be a huge loss if he does have to leave the pitch tonight, because as poor as this Burnley team have been, it's been led by the captain. You know, the captain's come in and he's made some fantastic first connections in his box. He's defended all the wide crosses well. We're just looking at the replays now. It might be a bit of cramp. I think that's what Sean Dyche was saying. If you've got cramp, son, you stay on the pitch. If you've got a problem, then you're off, of course.
And miraculously, he's fine. He's now leaving the field of play because he's received treatment. He's had his energy gel. He's having a swig of water, and all of a sudden, Ben Mee, who looked like he was down and out on the field of play, suggesting that could be the end of his return for the evening, looks like he's going to be able to carry on. I do wonder if that's something that Brighton can try and expose. You certainly wouldn't want someone running in behind Ben Mee and getting him at full stride if he's been struggling with cramp.
And this is where your substitution now, you know, as a manager, you'd be looking at that saying, right, then who's on the bench? Can we go and put him up against Ben Mee for 15 minutes of this game?
This might be perfectly set for the live wire that is Aaron Connolly to come on. Or from one live wire to another, because here's Neil Maupay driving forward from 40 yards out, got within 5 yards of the area before going down from a challenge. Mike Dean says the ball was taken cleanly by Tarkowski. Brighton retain possession. Webster trying to play out from the back. Pass loops up in the air. Dan Burn wins the header. Welbeck turns his ball around the corner and does a 1-2, and Lallana feeds it infield to Maupay. Lallana carries on the run. Welbeck went down. Now Lallana will argue here to Mike Dean that if you played advantage, I was in on the attack, but Mike Dean had already made the decision for the foul on Welbeck, and that did somewhat stop Brighton's momentum on that attack.
Yeah, it was a good little link play by Daniel Welbeck here. He got done by Tarkowski, but Lallana was in. You've got to let it go, Mike Dean, there. You know, he's got to give it at least a second just to see what develops.
Well, Mike Dean will do what Mike Dean sees fit. We've seen that with him in the Premier League.
Yep, the biggest ego on the football pitch.
Apart from Neil Maupay, according to Graham Potter. But anyway, here's Pascal Gross with his free kick. It looks as if Brighton will send it in first time. Such a poor delivery from Pascal Gross. Doesn't beat the first man. And now we see why they play their corners short, if that's what their sort of delivery is like. It's going to be worked back by Ben Mee to Lamptey on the halfway line. Brighton giving away possession though to Charlie Taylor. Drives on. Burn stays with him. Burn collides to the ground. Makes a grab at the ball. So it's not going to be a free kick. It'll be a handball given against him. And that will be Burnley's decision. So 79 minutes gone. Brighton 0. Burnley 0. Tweet in from Football and Music says, listening to the match while driving through the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Yes, we sang the Laurel and Hardy song. Says signal keeps dropping. Glad to find we haven't missed any goals when it comes back. Haven't missed anything really. This second half in comparison to the first, Sean Derry's been devoid of chances.
Yeah, he has. And the guy driving in Virginia wouldn't be opposed to putting on a nice CD for this last 10 minutes. Let's hope there's a goal, because this is the fragile moment of the game.
Sean Derry doing his best to get all the listeners to turn off. Here's Lallana trying to send a low ball into the box. It's cleared away. Well, you'd certainly be annoyed if you paid money to watch tonight's game. I mean, I know we haven't got fans inside the ground, but if fans were here, I mean, you can imagine the Brighton fans would be getting on the backs of their own players. I think the Burnley fans would be booing as well, wouldn't they?
I think they would, and I just can't believe that there's been no forward substitution from Brighton. Honestly, to change the dynamics here, we're seeing somebody now just got his shirt on.
Now this is Johan Bash, who's ready to come on by the looks of it for Brighton. Now, he certainly can provide an attacking outlet for the Seagulls. But the Iranian has only really featured sporadically this season as an attacking midfielder, quite creative, but Welbeck's played 80 minutes on his first start. You've got Aaron Connolly sitting on the bench. You've had Ben Mee, the Burnley centre-back, struggling with cramp, and yet you're not going to bring on a pacey, lively striker like Connolly. It boggles the mind.
Yeah, it's an amazing decision by Graham Potter. It really is. I mean, especially when the game's opened up like this. I mean, I'm not suggesting for one moment that Ben Mee can't continue and play at the levels that we've been watching him for a number of years now, but there's an error when you're fatigued like that.
Here's Welbeck. Lamptey now with the back heel. Lallana trying to keep the move alive. It's cleared as far as Basuma with an air kick. It's gone straight up and collected by Nick Pope. He sort of skewed that shot, sort of skimmed his boot around the effort. And what are we looking at here? Oh, a potential handball, maybe. And Lallana, as he drove forward down the left, delivered the ball in. Now that has hit the arm there of Ashley Westwood, but VAR wasn't interested in it. Sean Derry, what are your thoughts?
I think VAR have turned off because that is an absolute blatant penalty, isn't it? We've seen that numerous times in the Premier League this season and last. That is a blatant handball. I can only suggest that they've perhaps grabbed a coffee and watching a different type of game or a movie on back in Stockley Park.
I think someone needs to give Michael Oliver a nudge and wake him up, because I mean, the arm of Westwood there wasn't really the natural position. You know, it hit his hand, which was facing towards Adam Lallana with the bent arm, and I mean, we've certainly seen them given, but strange we didn't get much more, vocal protest there from Brighton when it initially happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the sub.
Well, the change is going to come now for Brighton. There will be another change for Burnley. This could be that Ben Mee's coming off. Brighton's change, though, is an attacking one, because Veltman is coming off and your Handbash is going to come on. So there certainly is a sign of intent, or some sign of intent, from Graham Potter. Your Handbash can operate certainly on the left flank. I'm just wondering maybe if he is going to replace Dan Burn at left wing back, and Burn will slot in where Veltman was, as Burnley are going to make a change, and we are going to see Matej Vydra come on to replace Chris Wood. So that is somewhat of an attacking change. He's more of an attacking midfielder. Whether or not they go with one up top here, Burnley, but I'm wondering if Sean Dyche is happy to settle for the point. 83 minutes gone, and it is still 0-0.
Yeah, I think you're right with Vydra on the bench, coming off the bench now. I mean, he's in behind, he's looked a threat.
Well, it's a ball over the top here, and Vydra with his first chance gets it under control. One-on-one here with Webster, but the back heel is to no one. And there, when he's got no support, I'm wondering why he didn't just pull the trigger there, Matej Vydra. Burnley have barely got into the Brighton half, let alone their penalty area in this second half. And when it did arise, the opportunity, very hesitant to take it. Mope getting the ball back and trying to play a 1-2 with Lallana. Spins away from trouble. Lallana looks to work it out wide to your Handbash. It was cleared upfield and away by Tarkowski. And now really the emphasis will be on Brighton to try and break Burnley down in these last 6 minutes or so, because if you are a Brighton fan, obviously you're not in the stadium tonight, but if you're watching at home or you're listening on the radio, you're going to be very frustrated if your team is drawing 0-0 at home with the side sitting bottom of the Premier League.
This is a big 2 points drops for Brighton at this moment in time. We watched them in the first half, and at times they looked like they could penetrate this Burnley team, especially with Lallana in them little pockets, but they've been one-dimensional this second half. They've just passed it really slowly around the back and into midfield, and the Burnley side they're set up for this. They have a back six and a midfield four in front, and they're saying, well, break us down, and they haven't been able to do that.
Burnley have only taken 1 point from a possible 18 in their last matches stretching back to last season. They're going to be taking their second point of the new campaign tonight if it stays like this. I'm sure Sean Dyche will be happy with that, but there's not many encouraging signs going forward. They do host Crystal Palace after the international break, then a horrendous run away to Manchester City, at home to high-flying Everton, and then they travel to the Emirates to take on Arsenal on the end of that. And this is a sub from Graham Potter that's coming about 10 minutes too late, isn't it? Aaron Connolly is ready to come on. I imagine it will be for Danny Welbeck, but this change should have been made probably on the even the 60th minute mark, let alone the 85th minute, Sean Derry.
I can't believe it, how you've left it so long. You know, somebody like Danny Welbeck, who's a top player, don't get me wrong, but for the last 20 minutes he's hardly moved. He's just played in front of this back four. He's never threatened behind, and that's because he's not fit. This young man Connolly, he runs in behind. He's got energy to burn. I'm sure he'll be so distraught with this, having only 5-6 minutes on the pitch tonight.
Well, he's another player that hasn't really found himself in the good books of Graham Potter. There was talk as well that maybe he was disappointed he wasn't getting enough game time, but that's down to the manager's discretion, as Yves Bissouma commits a foul needlessly inside his own half and then boots the ball away, and that's where the frustration is starting to settle in here for Brighton. A yellow card for Yves Bissouma, and I'm wondering really if this is what Sean Dyche wants. Brighton perhaps playing into his hands here by getting a little bit carried away and failing to control their temperament.
Yeah, it's just frustration. You know, frustration on the pitch, off the pitch. I'm sure Graham Potter will be looking, saying this is a wasted night for him.
Free kick for Burnley, which Westwood wants to take short. And Westwood will eventually get a chance to play it short. Burnley only have 4 players on the edge of the Brighton box. They'll try to find one of them. It's sent in. It's over the head of Johan Bash. It's out of play for a throw, and Johan Bash and McNeil are getting closer, and they're having a few words exchanged. So Johan Bash didn't really lean his head in, but he certainly made a shoulder barge in the direction of McNeil, and this would be a very stupid moment to get players booked or needlessly sent off for either manager. It's 0-0. The game is slipping away for both teams really and running down for a draw, but those unnecessary little moments where you can pick up yellow cards that come back to haunt you further down the road.
Yeah, just a bit of petulance from Johan Bash there. I'm not too sure why he wanted to get involved with Dwight McNeil.
Maybe he's trying to make something happen. Here's Lallana, faded somewhat in this second half, but still working hard, getting it out wide to Dan Burn. Burn again has to just turn 360 and look for runners. Lallana with a lovely scoop to release Dan Burn. Gets to the byline. It's an awful cross. Goes behind for a goal kick. Well, Graham Potter will applaud the move, and it was a lovely build-up play by Lallana to release Burn, but the final ball has been severely lacking for Brighton, and with distribution like that, you don't think there's going to be a chance for them to take all 3 points tonight.
No, I mean, you just can't legislate for mistakes like that. I mean, he got himself in a fantastic position, Dan Burn, and that's the centre half coming out of him. You know, that's the defensive instinct, the creativity, that finesse with the final ball has been let down so much tonight for this Brighton team.
2 minutes to go of the 90. Brighton 0, Burnley 0. Tweet in from Captain Bo 007, says, come on lads, talk it up for us on TalkSport Live, listening here in Alabama, enjoying a cold beer. I think I know where I'd rather be after seeing this game for almost 90 minutes, Bo.
Sorry, Captain Bo 007, but we can't talk this game up anymore. We've had a go tonight at certain times. Unfortunately, this second half has even put the VAR to sleep.
Well, on the plus side, if there is a goal, I'm calling it now, it's going to win the game. So Burnley have a free kick 10 yards inside the Brighton half. What a perfect way to start your weekend, eh? Here's a long ball forward. Lallana can clear that away uncontested. Out here for Johan Bash in the red boots. Send it down the left channel. Oh, there's a slap here, and Connolly was taken out by Ben Mee. I think he's very lucky there not to get a free kick. That's the third time tonight that Connolly has lost his footing, and inadvertently there he took out Aaron Connolly. Now it was a tight angle, but he might have been away. Here's a through ball from Lallana, collected by Nick Pope. But Ben Mee once again, well, I think the referee has saved his blushes there, hasn't he, Sean Derry?
He has, and I think, again, Ben Mee's very, very clever in the way that he's gone to ground and he's lifted his arm, I think.
That's deliberate, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And whatever the case is, it's a foul. It's a foul. Yeah. It might not be a red card, but it's definitely a foul.
Connolly was certainly impeded. We've got 3 minutes of misery. Sorry, 3 minutes of added on time in the game here as Lallana is pushed off the ball by Westwood. Goes behind for a goal kick. I mean, these two teams could play another 90 minutes. It'd probably still in 0-0, wouldn't it?
Well, I think what we have seen tonight for 90 minutes of football is these two teams are going to be in serious trouble for the rest of this Premier League season. You know, Burnley I can't see scoring at this moment in time. I mean, they're not big scorers at the best of times. Thank goodness they've got Ben Mee back, you know, because I know he's had a few misdemeanors tonight, but he's defended brilliantly well. But this Brighton team is so predictable in possession.
Strange, that creativity and that flair that Brighton had at the start of the season, albeit they were losing games, but that seems to have completely disappeared. Whether or not Graham Potter has sacrificed some of that for defensive stability, I don't know. But I mean, tonight Burnley, from my point of view, have been there for the taking, and Brighton just haven't killed them off at all. It remains 0-0, and the game still remains alive for Burnley with Jay Rodriguez. A through ball in the direction of Matej Vidra. It's nowhere near him. It's mopped up by Ben White. Brighton will try and play out of their own half. We've had a minute and a half of the 3 added on of additional time. One last chance maybe for Brighton. Dan Burn will bring it forward. Again, Brighton, no real movement from their front 3 now to try and create something. It's Basuma receiving the ball deep inside his own half. Burnley now come upfield, have left themselves a little bit exposed here. Lallana out wide for Lamptey. It's got to be a good delivery. Plays it short to Johan Bash. Back to Lamptey again. Now to Pascal Gross. Out wide against Johan Bash. Gets the ball out from his feet. Delivers the cross. It's straight at Nick Pope. Straight into his gloves. What a waste. Brighton got all the players forward. They had time, they had space to deliver the cross and pick out a man, and all they do is pick out the Burnley goalkeeper.
Well, I think tonight Graham Potter's a lucky guy that there is nobody in the Amex tonight, because this team would have been booed off. They would have been leaving on 60 minutes, and I think it's an absolute terrible performance by Brighton.
Neil Maupay will get the ball, and maybe Brighton have got one last chance due to Nick Pope's poor goal kick. Johan Bash, again it's poor delivery, it's straight to Nick Pope. I mean, you've got options inside the box. If you're going to sling it in, don't sling it in right next to the goalkeeper, and I'm sure Nick Pope now, with 10 seconds left of added on time, is just going to run down the clock. It's going to be, well, a decent point for Burnley considering their situation, but as you're saying, Sean Derrick, 2 points drop for Brighton here at home.
Yep, and this is the end of the game.
Well, there we are. The final whistle goes. Says fist bumps for Graham Potter and Sean Dyche. They can't be too happy though. Either manager failing to find a way through. Danny Welbeck with the best chance in the first half, towards the end of the first half, when he was denied by the feet of Nick Pope. But two teams who are struggling at the wrong end of the table, also struggling to find the back of the net. You wouldn't believe it, we do have a highlights package. Surprise me. There's a slip here and an early chance for Welbeck. Right side of the penalty area, back to Lamptey, and fired over the bar from close range. But what a let off for Burnley and for Ben Mee.
What a terrible decision it was. Ben Mee should have just dealt with it. He lost his footing, and this is where Lamptey's popped up at certain moments of this Premier League season, right involved in the 6-yard box, and he should have hit the target. He should have scored there.
Here's Lallana now being fed through by Maupay into the feet of Welbeck. 1-on-1 and a good save by the feet of Nick Pope. Best chance of the game for Brighton. It was good work down that left flank. Lallana moving into space with a through ball for Danny Welbeck. But when he got his chance, Nick Pope with a massive save with his feet.
Wonderful assist once again by Adam Lallana. Got that vision, hasn't he? You know, it's an inch perfect pass, and I think Welbeck, think about the finish too much. He had a lot of time. He could have placed it a little bit wider of the feet of Nick Pope.
Yeah, no team able to find a way past either goalkeeper, and it finished here at the Amex. Brighton 0, Burnley 0. We look at the table now. Brighton move a point further ahead of safety, 2 points now ahead of Fulham. They're 16th in the table. Burnley are off the bottom, which is quite important. A point ahead of Sheffield United, who take on Chelsea tomorrow. But really, I mean, from Burnley's perspective, Sean Derry, it was a must not lose, I guess, for Sean Dyche. But for Brighton, at home against the side bottom of the table, to not even score is a crime, but to not take anything from the game, I mean, Graham Potter, surely he can't be happy with that.
No, he can't, of course not. I'm going to look for the positives for Brighton. I really am. I need to, because, you know, it was one of them games where, you know, it put the most avid fan to sleep, wouldn't it? But to have Danny Welbeck back for 80 minutes and Adam Lallana playing a full 90 minutes can only stand them two players in good stead. And on the flip side of it, you know, Ben Mee coming back for Burnley in a clean sheet. It's like a reset performance, I think, for Burnley tonight. They can build from this, hopefully. You know, they can get a positive performance at home at Turf Moor, but this was a performance that I think, you know, we won't be speaking about too often, will we, in this Premier League season?
No, it's certainly not going to be a game that's going to be featured on many Christmas DVDs, that's for sure. Going into the international break, I mean, the difference of momentum if Brighton had won this going into that international break, because I mean, we look at their games going forward for Brighton. We know that Burnley have got a fairly horrendous run coming up after they faced Crystal Palace in the first game back. But for Brighton, away to Aston Villa, Liverpool at home, Southampton at home, and Leicester away. Now those are all teams, I mean, you take out Liverpool because obviously they're going for the title, but the other three teams are teams in really good form and in teams who have been picking up points so far this season, playing good football.
Yeah, and I think, you know, both the teams we've witnessed tonight have got 4 games coming up that are really difficult. They really are, and I think that was so important tonight that one of them got a maximum of 3 points. I'm not too sure either of them are going to be delighted with the outcome tonight. Both of the managers will be very, very disappointed.
As you say, one of the positives will be for Sean Dyche having Ben Mee back, and I suppose one of the positives is the defensive strength there and the solidity that Burnley found tonight, because Brighton did get quite a few chances in the first half. Just seeing a replay of one of the best ones for Danny Welbeck, but they're holding firm, and Burnley are built on that defence, aren't they? They're built as a team who are hard to beat, hard to penetrate, and I suppose that's the one positive, that he's now got that platform back that they can build on after the international break.
Yeah, and as disappointing as it was, and as hard as it was to watch, you know, nobody will get carried away with it at Burnley. You know, least of all the manager. You know, he'll be taking the point. Away from home, a point's a good point in the Premier League, regardless of how you play. But we've mentioned the likes of Ben Mee and him and James Starkowski. They look like a good partnership tonight. Very secure, organised. You know, at times they played with a back six, didn't they? And it was tough to watch, but a big point for Sean Dyche.
I mean, we know it's going to be a long season. We're only now 7 games in for Brighton and Burnley, but do you think we will see these two in trouble come the end of the season? Will they be down there in a relegation dogfight?
I think we see the bottom 4 or 5 at this moment in time, and I can't see how they're going to be anywhere other than the bottom 5 at the end of the season. Sheffield United have had a real tough start to the Premier League as well. You know, Brighton, they just look like they have too often. We saw tonight where they had a lot of possession in the deep third, and they were just content in playing around in the middle third and the deep third, never really wanted to penetrate with any pace.
Well, my thanks to you, Sean Derry. I apologise for making you sit through that game for 90 minutes, but there we are. Finishes Brighton 0, Burnley 0 here from the Amex. I've been your host, John Howitt. Coming up after us is live coverage of Southampton versus Newcastle with Toby Gillis and Chris Perry. But from Sean Derry and myself, John Howitt, thank you for joining us this evening, and this has been Premier League Live.
Evenings with James Whale on Talk Radio.
Keep connected with round-the-clock news, essential information and expert insight.
I think we've got to be very careful about the way this has all been going on.
Cutting through the confusion with everything you need to stay safe, informed and entertained.
Everyone's going on about, we should be tracking and testing, and I just don't know how that is going to happen.
Evenings with James Whale. Weeknights from 7 on Talk Radio.
In a world of 24/7 global sportscasting and instant news infotainment, one man bestrides the airwaves like a snow-capped Caledonian colossus.
Hello, I'm Jim White.
Jim White, anchorman.
Mid-morning news team, assemble.
Jim White and Natalie Sawyer, the #1 rated news source for breaking sports stories, big-name guests, and liquid showbiz charisma.
Great Odin's Raven. That's quite a transfer.
There's nothing burgundy about Jim White. Tomorrow morning from 10 on TalkSport.
In the spring of the year 2020 AD, a deadly enemy rages like a torrent of fire between the ends of empire.
My name is Maximus Sportus Pandemicus, gladiator of the sports radio. Gird up your loins and battle the invasion of COVID-19.